One day, everything you are worried about right now will disappear. The stress, the pain, the fear, the people, the situations, none of it will stay forever. Life keeps moving whether you are ready or not. But most people never accept this reality. They keep trying to hold on to relationships that are changing. They keep replaying old memories in their mind. They keep resisting endings, resisting uncertainty, resist life itself. And slowly, this resistance becomes their suffering. Buddhism teaches that peace begins the moment you stop expecting temporary things to give you permanent happiness. The moment you understand that everything flows and nothing lasts, your mind becomes lighter. You stop fearing change so much. You stop panicking over every ending, and you finally learn one of the deepest secrets of inner peace. Letting go is not weakness, it is freedom. 1. Nothing in life is meant to stay the same. Buddhism teaches that change is the natural law of life. Nothing is meant to remain exactly the same forever. 2. Seasons change, people change, emotions change, and even the way you think changes over time. Life is constantly moving, even when we want things to stay comfortable and familiar. 2. Many people suffer because they expect permanence from temporary things. They want relationships to never change. They want happiness to last forever. 2. They want life to always feel safe and predictable. But no matter how much we try to hold on, life continues to move forward. 2. If you look back at your own life, you will realize how much has already changed. The person you were years ago is not the same person you are today. 2. Your mindset changed, your priorities changed, and many situations you once thought were permanent eventually disappeared. Even painful moments that once felt endless slowly passed with time. The problem is not change itself. The real problem begins when we resist change and mentally fight against reality. 2. The more you try to control everything and keep life exactly the same, the more emotionally exhausted you become. Buddhism teaches that peace begins when you accept that life is always transforming. Instead of fearing change, learn to understand it. Because once you stop demanding permanence from a temporary world, your mind becomes calmer, lighter, and more peaceful. 2. Attachment turns beautiful things into suffering. Many beautiful things in life become painful because people become too attached to them. Instead of simply appreciating what they have, they become afraid of losing it. And slowly, love turns into fear, peace turns into anxiety, and happiness turns into emotional suffering. 2. Buddhism teaches that attachment is one of the main causes of suffering. The more tightly you hold on to something, the more pain you feel when life begins to change. People become attached to relationships, success, money, comfort, and even the opinions of others. They start believing these things must stay forever in order for them to feel happy. For example, a relationship can become emotionally exhausting when exhausting. Someone constantly fears being abandoned. Success can become stressful when a person becomes obsessed with never losing it, too. Even beautiful memories can create sadness when someone refuses to accept that her past is gone. The problem is not enjoying life or loving people deeply. Buddhism does not teach us to become cold or emotionless. The real problem begins when we expect temporary things to give us permanent security and happiness. Everything in life eventually changes too. The more you try to possess things forever, the more anxiety enters your mind. But when you learn to appreciate life without clinging to it, your heart becomes lighter and more peaceful. True peace comes when you enjoy life while understanding that nothing was ever meant to stay forever. 3. Pain is temporary, but resistance makes it last longer. Pain is a natural part of human life. 2. Every person experiences disappointment, heartbreak, failure, fear, loneliness, and loss at some point. No matter how strong or wise someone becomes, they cannot completely escape painful moments. 2. Buddhism teaches that pain itself is not the real problem. The real suffering begins when we mentally resist reality and refuse to accept what has already happened. 2. Many people unknowingly make their pain heavier by constantly fighting it inside their mind. Instead of allowing emotions to pass naturally, they replay painful situations again and again. They overthink every detail, ask endless questions, and emotionally relive the same suffering every single day. Someone hurts them once, but mentally they hurt themselves hundreds of times by refusing to let the experience go. They keep thinking, why did this happen to me? Why did they leave? Why did life become unfair? And slowly, temporary pain turns into long-term emotional exhaustion. Buddhism teaches that emotions are like waves in the ocean. They rise, stay for a moment, and eventually fade away. Sadness changes, anger changes, fear changes. 2. Even the darkest emotions cannot stay forever. But when you resist reality, cling to the past, and mentally fight what already exists, you keep feeding the pain instead of healing from it. Think about how many people spend years emotionally trapped inside one painful chapter of life. Some people cannot move on from betrayal. Some cannot let go of rejection. Some continue carrying old anger for decades. Life keeps moving forward, but mentally they remain stuck in the same place because they refuse to accept what happened too. This resistance creates even more suffering than the original pain itself. For example, losing someone you love is painful. Failure is painful. Rejection is painful too. But constantly denying reality, refusing to heal, and mentally replaying suffering every day only makes the wound deeper too. Instead of allowing life to flow naturally, the mind becomes trapped in emotional struggle. Buddhism does not teach us to suppress emotions or pretend pain does not exist. It teaches us to observe pain without becoming completely consumed by it. You can acknowledge sadness without allowing it to destroy your entire life. You can experience heartbreak without losing yourself completely. Healing begins when you stop fighting reality internally. The moment you accept that pain is part of life and trust that emotions eventually change, your mind slowly becomes calmer. You stop panicking during difficult moments because you understand that no emotional storm lasts forever too. Just like rain eventually passes and the sky becomes clear again, painful seasons of life also fade with time too. And sometimes the suffering that once nearly broke you becomes the very experience that makes you wiser, stronger, and more peaceful in the future. 4. People change, and that is not always a betrayal. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that people change. Someone who once felt close to you may slowly become distant too. A person who once understood you deeply may eventually think differently, act differently, or walk a completely different path in life. Many people suffer because they expect relationships to remain exactly the same forever. But Buddhism teaches that change is part of every human experience. People grow through pain, experiences, success, failure, time, and emotional struggles. No one stays exactly the same forever. Even you are not the same person you were years ago. Your mindset changed, your priorities changed, your emotional needs changed, and your understanding of life changed. In the same way, other people are also constantly evolving. The problem begins when people take every change personally. The moment someone becomes distant, they immediately feel abandoned or betrayed. They start thinking that every ending means they were not good enough. But sometimes people change simply because life changes them too. Sometimes two people who were once deeply connected slowly grow in different directions. Buddhism teaches that attachment to old versions of people creates suffering too. Many people continue expecting someone to behave exactly the way they did years ago, even though time has already changed them. 2, they hold on to memories and expectations instead of accepting reality as it is now. This is why so many relationships become emotionally painful. Instead of accepting change naturally, people resist it. They try forcing old connections to stay alive, even when life is clearly moving in another direction. 2, they become angry that people are no longer who they used to be. But not every change is betrayal. Sometimes people leave because their journey is different now. 2, sometimes friendships fade because life responsibilities change. Sometimes relationships end because both people are no longer emotionally aligned. This does not always mean someone wanted to hurt you intentionally. Buddhism reminds us that every person enters our life for a season, a lesson, or a purpose too. Some people stay for many years, while others only remain for a short chapter. Trying to force every connection to last forever only creates emotional suffering, because life itself is always changing too. This does not mean you should stop loving people or stop building meaningful relationships too. It simply means you should learn to appreciate people while they are present without trying to control their entire journey too. Many people destroy their peace because they cannot accept that endings are part of life. They continue chasing people who already emotionally left. They continue reopening wounds by refusing to let relationships end naturally. They become trapped between memories of the past and fear of being alone too. But Buddhism teaches that peace comes when you stop clinging so tightly to people. It becomes healthier. Love becomes healthier when it is not built on possession and fear too. Real love understands that every human being has their own path, their own struggles, and their own evolution in life. So sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is accept that people changed, life changed, and certain chapters were never meant to last forever. So the moment you stop expecting permanence from people, your heart becomes lighter. You stop taking every change as a personal attack against you too. You stop begging life to keep everything the same forever. And slowly you begin understanding one of the deepest truths of life. People will come, people will go, and life will continue flowing forward, no matter how much we try to hold on. 5, 2. Letting go creates space for what is meant to grow. Many people cannot move forward in life because they are emotionally holding on to things that no longer belong in their journey too. They continue holding old pain, old relationships, old regrets, old failures, and old versions of themselves too. Even though life is trying to guide them toward growth and healing, their mind remains trapped in the past. Buddhism teaches that letting go is necessary for transformation too. Just like a tree must release dead leaves before new ones can grow, human beings must also release certain things in order to grow emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But many people fear letting go because they think it means losing something important. They become so attached to familiar pain that they would rather suffer in the old than step into the unknown. Two, even unhealthy relationships, toxic environments, and painful memories become difficult to release simply because they feel familiar. The mind often confuses attachment with safety too. This is why some people continue chasing relationships that already ended. Some continue carrying guilt from mistakes made years ago. Two, some continue defining themselves by old failures and painful experiences. They hold on so tightly to the past that they leave no space for peace, healing, or new opportunities to enter their life. Buddhism teaches that attachment blocks growth. When your hands are full of the past, you cannot fully receive the future. So, when your mind is consumed by old pain, you cannot experience the peace available in the present moment. Sometimes life removes certain people, situations, or chapters because they are no longer helping your growth. But instead of trusting the process, many people resist these endings too. They beg life to return things that were already meant to leave. And because of this resistance, they continue suffering long after the chapter has already ended. Two, letting go does not mean your experiences were meaningless. It does not mean you stop caring. It simply means you stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight that keeps destroying your peace. Think about how exhausting it is to constantly hold anger, regret, resentment, or heartbreak inside your mind. These emotions slowly drain your energy, your focus, and your happiness. The more you cling to them, the heavier your life becomes. But the moment you begin releasing what no longer serves you, something powerful happens inside you. Your mind becomes lighter too. Your emotions become calmer. You create space for new understanding, new opportunities, and new peace to enter your life too. Many of the best things in life only appear after we finally release what was holding us back. Sometimes healing begins after letting go of the person who kept hurting you. Sometimes confidence grows after letting go of old insecurity. Sometimes peace enters your life after you stop chasing what was never truly meant for you to. Buddhism reminds us that endings are not always punishments. Sometimes endings are necessary redirections, too. Life may close certain doors because a different path is waiting for you. But you cannot walk toward it while emotionally chained to the past. This is why learning to let go is one of the most important forms of inner freedom. You stop trying to force life to stay the same forever. You stop carrying emotional baggage everywhere you go. You stop reopening wounds that are trying to heal. And slowly you begin understanding that life flows more peacefully when you stop clinging to everything so tightly. Because sometimes the reason you cannot grow is not because life is against you. It is because you are still holding on to what you were supposed to release long ago. 6. The present moment is all you truly have. Most people spend their entire lives mentally somewhere else. Their body exists in the present moment, but their mind is trapped either in the past or in the future. They replay old memories, old mistakes, old heartbreaks, and old regrets. Or they constantly worry about tomorrow, imagining problems that have not even happened yet. Because of this, they miss the only thing that is truly real, the present moment. Buddhism teaches that life only exists right now. The past no longer exists except inside your memory. The future has not arrived yet. But despite this truth, most people sacrifice today for thoughts that they cannot control. They destroy their peace by carrying yesterday's pain and tomorrow's fear at the same time. Think about how many moments of your life passed without you fully experiencing them. Sometimes you were so busy worrying about the future that you could not enjoy the people sitting beside you. Sometimes you were physically present during beautiful moments, but mentally you were somewhere else completely. Your mind was distracted by stress, fear, overthinking, comparison, or emotional pain. And slowly, life kept moving. Buddhism teaches that one of the greatest causes of suffering is unconscious living. Many people are alive, but they are not truly experiencing life anymore. Too. Their mind is constantly racing from one thought to another. Even during peaceful moments, they cannot relax because they are mentally fighting imaginary futures or emotionally revisiting painful memories. A person sits with family while thinking about work stress. Another person finally achieves success, but immediately begins worrying about losing it. Someone else spends years regretting mistakes that can no longer be changed. The mind never rests because it refuses to stay in the present. But the present moment is the only place where life actually happens. Your future will eventually arrive as another present moment too. Even your memories were once present moments that disappeared while you were distracted by something else. This is why Buddhism teaches mindfulness. Not as a trend, but as a path toward inner peace. Too. Mindfulness means becoming fully aware of your life while it is happening. It means paying attention to your thoughts, emotions, surroundings, and experiences without constantly escaping into mental noise. Most people think happiness exists somewhere far away in the future. They tell themselves, I will finally be happy when I become successful. I will relax once my problems disappear. I will enjoy life later, but later never truly arrives. Too. Life keeps moving from one moment to the next while the mind continues, chasing another destination. And one day, people suddenly realize they spent their entire life waiting to live instead of actually living. Buddhism reminds us that impermanence makes the present moment incredibly valuable. Every conversation, every sunrise, every peaceful morning, every laugh, every moment with people you love is temporary. Nothing lasts forever. Too. The food you eat today, the home you live in, the people around you, even your own body, all of it is changing slowly with time. This truth is not meant to create fear. It is meant to awaken appreciation. Because when you deeply understand impermanence, you stop taking ordinary moments for granted. You begin noticing simple things more deeply. You appreciate silence, too. You appreciate peace. You appreciate time with loved ones. You appreciate health, nature, and moments of calm that once seemed unimportant, too. Many people spend years chasing huge achievements while ignoring the beauty of ordinary life, too. They believe happiness only exists in major accomplishments. But Buddhism teaches that peace is often found in small, present moments that people constantly overlook. A quiet morning, a peaceful walk, a deep conversation, a calm breath, a moment of stillness without anxiety. These simple moments become powerful when your mind is fully present enough to experience them. But modern life constantly pulls people away from the present moment to social media, comparison, endless distractions, overthinking, and constant stimulation make it difficult for people to simply sit with themselves peacefully. Even during rest, the mind keeps searching for more noise. This is why so many people feel emotionally exhausted. Their body never truly rests because their mind never stops running. Too. Buddhism teaches that peace begins when the mind learns to slow down. Not every moment needs to be filled with worry, stimulation, or mental chaos. Sometimes the deepest healing happens in silence, awareness, and presence. When you become fully present, many unnecessary fears begin losing their power too. Anxiety often comes from worrying about future situations that may never happen. Depression often becomes heavier when the mind remains trapped in painful memories from the past. But in the present moment itself, many of these mental burdens disappear. Right now, in this exact moment, you are simply breathing. Right now, life is happening. Too. Right now, this moment exists only once and will never return again. Buddhism teaches that every moment is precious precisely because it is temporary. Think about how quickly time passes. Childhood disappears. People grow older. Relationships change. Entire years pass faster than expected. One day, people wake up and realize that the moments they thought would last forever quietly disappeared while they were distracted, stressed, or emotionally absent. This is why awareness matters so deeply. When you are truly present, life becomes richer. You stop rushing through every moment, trying to arrive somewhere else. You stop living entirely inside your thoughts. You begin experiencing reality more clearly instead of constantly escaping it mentally too. Even difficult moments become easy to handle when approached with presence. Instead of panicking about the future, you focus on this moment only. Instead of carrying 10 years of fear inside your mind, you simply face today. One breath, one step, one moment at a time. The human mind often creates more suffering by imagining endless future problems. But most of those imagined fears never actually happen. People waste years worrying about situations that exist only inside their thoughts. Meanwhile, real life keeps passing by. Buddhism teaches that true peace cannot be found in obsessive thinking. Two, peace is discovered when the mind returns to the present moment and accepts life as it is now. This does not mean ignoring responsibilities or pretending the future does not matter. Two, it simply means you stop sacrificing your entire life to constant worry and mental distraction. You learn to prepare for the future without emotionally living inside fear every day. The present moment is where your life, the present moment is where peace exists. The present moment is where healing begins. And the truth is, this moment is all anyone ever truly has. Two, yesterday is already gone. Tomorrow is uncertain, but this moment is alive right now. Buddhism teaches that once you fully understand this truth, your relationship with life changes completely. You stop delaying happiness. You stop wasting years trapped in overthinking. You stop taking people and moments for granted. Because deep down, you finally realize something powerful. One day, every ordinary moment you have today will become a memory. And one day, you may look back, wishing you had truly lived while life was still in front of you. 7. True peace comes when you flow with life. Most people spend their entire lives fighting reality. 2. They fight change, fight endings, fight uncertainty, and fight situations they cannot control. 2. They want life to move exactly according to their plans. And when things do not happen the way they expected, they become angry, anxious, frustrated, and emotionally exhausted. But Buddhism teaches that suffering grows when we constantly resist the natural flow of life. Life has always been changing. Nothing remains still forever. 2. Some seasons bring happiness, while others bring pain. Some chapters bring success, while others bring struggle and uncertainty. This movement is part of existence itself. Yet, many people suffer because they expect life to remain comfortable and predictable all the time. They want permanent happiness in a temporary world. 2. When life changes unexpectedly, the mind immediately panics. A relationship ends, and the person feels like life is over. A failure happens, and they lose all hope. 2. Plans fall apart, and they emotionally collapse because reality no longer matches the image they created inside their mind. The problem is not only the situation itself. The deeper suffering comes from resistance. 2. The mind keeps saying, this should not be happening. Life is unfair. Things were supposed to go differently. And because of this constant resistance, people create emotional chaos inside themselves. Buddhism teaches that peace begins when you stop demanding complete control over life. The truth is, much of life will always remain uncertain. 2. You cannot fully control people, time, change, aging, endings, or unexpected events. No matter how hard you try, life will continue moving in ways you cannot predict. Many people become mentally exhausted because they spend years trying to control everything. They try controlling how people feel about them. They try controlling every possible future outcome too. They try controlling situations that were never fully in their power to begin with. And slowly, anxiety takes over their entire mind too. The more tightly you try to control life, the more fear you create. Because deep down, the mind knows that control is temporary. This is why people constantly worry about losing things. They fear losing relationships, success, money, beauty, health, or stability, because they know nothing lasts forever. Buddhism does not teach passivity or weakness. It teaches acceptance of reality too. There is a difference between taking action and trying to control the entire universe. Wise people still work hard, still make decisions, and still improve their lives, but they stop emotionally destroying themselves over things they cannot fully control. Flowing with life means understanding that not everything will happen to your expectations, and that is okay. Think about water for a moment. Water does not fight every obstacle aggressively. It flows around rocks, adapts to the environment, and continues moving forward. Too. Buddhism often compares wisdom to water because water does not waste energy resisting reality constantly. But most people live the opposite way. They mentally fight every difficulty. Two, they resist every ending. They become emotionally attached to plans, expectations, and outcomes. When life changes direction, they suffer deeply because they cannot accept uncertainty. Sometimes life closes doors you desperately wanted to keep open. Sometimes people leave unexpectedly. Sometimes plans fail even after years of effort. Sometimes painful situations appear without warning. No human being can completely avoid these experiences. But Buddhism teaches that inner peace depends on how you respond to life, not on whether life becomes perfect. Many people believe peace will finally come when everything around them becomes stable. They think, I will be peaceful when all my problems disappear. I will relax when life becomes perfect. I will be happy when everything goes according to plan. But that day never truly arrives. Two, life will always contain uncertainty. Even during good seasons, change continues happening quietly in the background. Two, this wise people who depend entirely on external conditions for peace often remain anxious, no matter how much they achieve. True peace is not found in controlling life perfectly. Two, true peace is found in learning how to remain calm while life continues changing. This is one of the deepest lessons of Buddhism. Two, when you flow with life, your relationship with problems changes completely. Difficult moments still hurt, but they no longer completely destroy your inner stability. Two, you stop reacting emotionally to every unexpected event. You stop believing every painful moment means your life is ruined forever. Instead, you begin understanding that life moves in cycles. Pain comes and goes. Success comes and goes. People come and go. Emotions rise and fall. Nothing stays permanent. And strangely, this understanding creates freedom too. Because when you stop expecting permanence from life, fear begins losing its grip on your mind. You no longer panic every time something changes. You stop clinging desperately to every situation. You stop mentally collapsing over temporary problems. Many people suffer because they confuse change with disaster. But sometimes change is exactly what life needs in order to help you grow. Some people discover their strength only after losing comfort. Some discover peace only after heartbreak. Some find their true path only after life destroys the one they planned. But when people resist change completely, they cannot see the wisdom hidden inside difficult experiences. Buddhism teaches that every season of life has something to teach you. Even painful moments can become opportunities for deeper understanding, patience, compassion, and inner growth too. But this becomes impossible when the mind remains trapped in resistance and anger toward reality. Uh, uh, Flowing with life also means trusting that not every unanswered question needs immediate certainty too. Many people suffer because they constantly need to know what will happen next. They cannot tolerate uncertainty. Their mind keeps demanding guarantees about the future. But life has never offered permanent guarantees to anyone. No one fully knows what tomorrow will bring. And yet, despite this uncertainty, life continues moving forward every single day. Buddhism teaches that peace grows when you learn to live with uncertainty instead of constantly fearing it. The future will always remain partly unknown, but worrying endlessly about it only steals your ability to experience the present moment. This is why flowing with life requires trust, not blind optimism, not pretending problems do not exist, but trusting that you are capable of handling life as it unfolds. Many people underestimate their own strength. They believe they will completely break if life becomes difficult, but often the human spirit is far stronger than the fearful mind believes. You have already survived painful moments before. You have already endured uncertainty before. You already adapted to changes you once thought you could never handle. Life continues moving, and so do you. Buddhism reminds us that peace is not about controlling every wave in the ocean. Peace comes from learning how to remain steady while the waves rise and fall naturally. The moment you stop fighting life constantly, something begins changing inside you. Your mind becomes quieter. Your anxiety becomes lighter. Two, you stop carrying the impossible burden of trying to control everything. You begin breathing more deeply. You begin living more naturally. Two, you begin accepting reality instead of constantly arguing with it internally and slowly. Peace enters your life. Because true peace does not come from forcing life to obey your plans. True peace comes when you finally understand that life was always meant to flow. And the moment you stop resisting that flow, your suffering begins to disappear. 8. 2. Impermanence is not meant to scare you. It is meant to wake you up. Most people fear impermanence because they only focus on the painful side of change. 2. They think about loss, endings, aging, separation, and uncertainty. They become afraid because deep down they know nothing in life can stay forever. But Buddhism teaches something much deeper. Impermanence is not meant to make you hopeless. It is meant to awaken you. Without impermanence, many people would never truly appreciate life. Think about it carefully. The reason moments feel meaningful is because they are temporary. A sunset becomes beautiful because it eventually disappears. 2. Childhood becomes precious because it does not last forever. Time with loved ones becomes valuable because one day those moments will no longer exist in the same way again. Impermanence gives life emotional depth. Yet, most people live as if they have unlimited time. They keep postponing happiness, peace, healing, and meaningful experiences. They tell themselves they will enjoy life later. They believe there will always be another chance, another moment, another opportunity. But Buddhism constantly reminds us that life is fragile, uncertain, and temporary. One day, everything changes. The people around you grow older. Your body changes. Your environment changes, too. Entire chapters of life disappear quietly without warning. And many people only realize the value of moments after they are already gone. This is why Buddhism teaches awareness of impermanence so strongly. Not to create fear, but to help people wake up from unconscious living. Most people move through life distracted, emotionally absent, and mentally trapped inside endless thoughts, too. They spend years worrying about things that never happen while completely ignoring the life unfolding in front of them, too. They do not appreciate peaceful mornings because they are busy thinking about future stress. They do not fully listen to loved ones because their mind is somewhere else. 2. They do not enjoy simple moments because they believe happiness only exists in some future destination. And then suddenly, time passes. One day, people look back and realize entire years disappeared while they were mentally distracted by fear, overthinking, comparison, anger, and emotional attachment. 2. Buddhism teaches that impermanence should make you more alive, not more afraid. When you deeply understand that life is temporary, you begin seeing things differently, too. You stop taking ordinary moments for granted. You realize even simple experiences are precious because they cannot last forever. A meal shared with family becomes meaningful too. A peaceful walk becomes meaningful. A quiet conversation becomes meaningful. Even moments of silence become meaningful because now you understand that life itself is temporary too. Many people chase huge achievements while missing the beauty of everyday existence. They believe peace only comes after success, wealth, or recognition. But Bud- Buddhism teaches that peace is available right now for the person who is fully awake enough to notice life while it is happening. Impermanence changes the way you see problems too. When you understand that everything changes, you stop reacting so dramatically to every difficult moment. You realize painful situations are temporary. Emotions are temporary. Fear is temporary. Even confusion and uncertainty eventually change form with time. This understanding creates emotional balance. Many people emotionally collapse because they secretly believe their current situation will last forever. During painful moments, the mind tells them, this suffering will never end. My life is ruined forever. I will never feel peace again. But Buddhism reminds us that life is always moving. The person who feels lost today may feel strong years later. The person experiencing heartbreak today may eventually discover peace. The person struggling right now may one day look back and realize the painful chapter transformed them completely. Impermanence is the reason pain does not stay forever. At the same time, Buddhism also reminds us not to become too attached during good moments either. Happiness changes. Success, youth changes. Beauty changes. Nothing can remain frozen forever. This truth may sound uncomfortable at first, but it actually creates freedom. Because once you stop demanding permanence from life, fear begins losing control over you. You stop panicking over every ending. You stop desperately clinging to every pleasant experience. You stop trying to control time itself. Instead, you begin learning how to fully experience life while accepting its temporary nature. This is one of the deepest forms of wisdom, too. Many people suffer because they want certainty in an uncertain world. They want guarantees that relationships will never end, success will never disappear, and life will always remain stable, too. But life has never promised permanence to anyone. Everything changes eventually. And strangely, this truth can become beautiful once you stop resisting it. Imagine if painful emotions lasted forever, too. Imagine if suffering never changed. Imagine if heartbreak stayed permanently inside the human heart. Impermanence is also the reason healing exists. It is the reason growth exists. It is the reason transformation exists. Every difficult season eventually changes into another season. Buddhism teaches that accepting impermanence does not mean becoming cold or detached from life. It means learning how to love life without trying to imprison it. It means appreciating moments while they exist instead of demanding they stay forever. A flower is beautiful because it blooms for a short time. Music becomes emotional because it eventually ends. Even human life becomes meaningful because time is limited. To impermanence gives urgency to life, Ponce. Without it, many people would never appreciate anything deeply, too. This is why Buddhism teaches awareness of death and change, not as something dark, but as a reminder to live consciously. One day, every argument, every fear, every insecurity, and every stressful situation will disappear. One day, the things you worry about constantly may no longer matter at all. So, why spend your entire life mentally imprisoned by fear and attachment? Why waste years carrying resentment, anxiety, and emotional suffering when life itself is already temporary, too? Many people postpone peace because they believe they have endless time. But Buddhism reminds us that time moves quietly and quickly, too. The days you think are ordinary are slowly becoming your life story. Right now, someone is experiencing a moment they will never get back again. Right now, someone is wasting precious years trapped inside overthinking. Right now, someone is ignoring the beauty of life because their mind is too distracted by fear. And one day, they may look back, realizing they were alive, but never truly living. Impermanence wakes you up to reality. It teaches you to appreciate the present, too. It teaches you to stop. It teaches you to stop wasting life chasing complete control. It teaches you to forgive more easily because nothing lasts forever, too. It teaches you to become softer, calmer, and more aware of what truly matters. Many people think peace comes from controlling life perfectly. But Buddhism teaches that peace comes from understanding life deeply. And one of the deepest truths of life is this: everything changes. The people you love will change. Your emotions will change. But your struggles will change. Your identity will change. Your life itself will continue transforming moment by moment. The question is not whether change will happen. The question is whether you will continue fighting reality or finally learn to flow with it peacefully. Because it's the moment you stop resisting impermanence, life becomes lighter. You stop expecting forever from temporary things. You stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world. You stop carrying unnecessary fear inside your mind every single day. And slowly, you begin experiencing a different kind of peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but a deeper peace built on acceptance, awareness, and understanding. Peace that remains steady even while life continues changing around you. Buddhism teaches that this is true freedom, not escaping change, not controlling life too, but learning how to remain calm while everything flows naturally. And once you truly understand impermanence, something powerful happens inside you. You stop fearing life so much. You stop fearing endings so much. You stop fearing change so much because deep down, you finally understand that life was never meant to stay still forever. It was always meant to flow. 9. 2. The more you accept impermanence, the less life can control you. Most people spend their entire lives emotionally controlled by change. Their happiness depends on circumstances staying comfortable. 2. Their peace depends on people behaving exactly the way they expect. Their emotional stability depends on life moving according to their plans. 2. And because life constantly changes, they constantly suffer. Buddhism's that attachment to permanence is one of the deepest forms of human suffering. 2. People suffer because they expect temporary things to remain forever. They want relationships to never change. They want success to last permanently. They want youth, comfort, beauty, and certainty to stay with them forever. But life has never worked that way. Everything changes eventually. So, the moment you deeply understand this truth, something powerful begins happening inside you. You slowly stop allowing life to control your emotions so easily. You stop panicking every time something changes. You stop collapsing emotionally over every ending because you finally understand that change was always part of existence. Many people live in constant fear because they are trying to hold on to things that were never fully under their control to begin with. They fear losing people. They fear losing status. They fear losing comfort. They fear losing control over the future. And because of these fears, they spend their lives anxious, emotionally dependent, and mentally exhausted. Think about how much human suffering comes from fear of change. A person becomes anxious because they fear losing a relationship. Another becomes obsessed with money because they fear instability. Someone else cannot enjoy success because they constantly worry about failure. Even during peaceful moments, the mind keeps preparing for loss. This is what attachment does. Instead of allowing people to enjoy life peacefully, attachment fills their mind with fear. Two, the more attached someone becomes to permanence, the more emotionally fragile they become when life naturally changes. Buddhism teaches that true inner strength begins when you accept impermanence completely, not intellectually, not as a beautiful quote, but deeply within your heart too. When you truly understand that everything changes, your relationship with life transforms. You stop expecting certainty from an uncertain world too. You stop depending on temporary things for permanent emotional security. And because of this, life loses much of its power to mentally destroy you. This does not mean you stop loving people. It does not mean you stop caring about life. It does not mean you become emotionally cold or detached from humanity. It simply means you stop clinging desperately. Two, you begin understanding that every experience is temporary. And because of this, you learn how to appreciate life without trying to imprison it too. Most people mentally suffer twice. First, from life itself, and second, from their resistance to life changing. For example, heartbreak hurts naturally too. But many people create deeper surrender by refusing to accept the ending. They obsess over the past, replay memories endlessly, and mentally fight reality every day. Two, years pass, but emotionally they remain trapped because they cannot accept impermanence. The same happens with failure. Two, a person loses something important, and instead of adapting, they become emotionally frozen in the past. They continue defining themselves by one painful chapter, even though life itself keeps moving forward too. Buddhism teaches that suffering becomes lighter when you stop demanding that life remain the same forever. This understanding creates emotional resilience too. When you accept impermanence, difficult situations still affect you, but they no longer completely destroy your inner peace. You begin seeing problems differently too. Instead of believing every painful moment will last forever, you remind yourself, this will also change. And this truth becomes incredibly powerful during hard times, because many people mentally collapse, not because life is impossible, but because they believe their current pain is permanent. They cannot imagine life changing again. But life always changes. The sadness you feel today changes. The fear changes. The confusion changes. Even the identity you currently have will evolve with time. Buddhism teaches that attachment to fixed identities also creates suffering. Many people become trapped, trying to protect old versions of themselves too. They fear change because they associate it with losing control. But transformation is natural. The person you were 10 years ago already disappeared. Your thoughts changed. Your beliefs changed. Your emotional understanding changed. Even your goals changed. Life is always reshaping you quietly. The more you resist this natural transformation, the heavier life feels. But when you accept change, flexibility, and your mind, you become emotionally adaptable instead of emotionally fragile. You stop expecting life to freeze itself for your comfort. This is one reason why wise people often appear calmer during difficult situations. It is not because they never feel pain. It is because they understand the nature of life more deeply. They know that everything changes eventually. So they do not panic as intensely during temporary storms. Most anxiety comes from wanting certainty where certainty cannot exist. 2, people want guarantees that relationships will last forever, guarantees that life will remain stable, guarantees that pain will never arrive, guarantees about the future too. But life cannot provide permanent guarantees to anyone. And once you truly accept this, fear slowly loses its grip over your mind too. Because now, instead of demanding impossible certainty from life, you begin learning how to remain steady even while life changes around you. This is real emotional freedom. Many people think freedom means controlling everything successfully. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Freedom comes when you stop depending on external conditions for inner peace, too. If your peace depends entirely on life staying comfortable, then your peace is fragile. If your happiness depends entirely on people never changing, then your happiness is fragile. If your emotional stability depends entirely on certainty, then your mind will constantly suffer. But when you understand impermanence deeply, a stronger peace begins developing inside you, too. A peace that understands. Good moments will pass. Bad moments will pass. Life will continue flowing, and no experience remains forever. This understanding also changes the way you handle success, too. Many people become arrogant or obsessed during successful seasons because they secretly believe success will stay permanently. But Buddhism reminds us that even success changes. Fame changes. Wealth changes. Social status changes. Everything in life moves like waves. Understanding impermanence keeps the mind balanced. During good times, you remain grateful instead of arrogant. So, during difficult times, you remain hopeful instead of hopeless. Because now you understand that every season eventually changes into another season. Buddhism also teaches that attachment to control is deeply connected to ego. The ego wants certainty. It wants ownership. It wants permanence. It wants life to obey personal expectations constantly. But reality does not obey the ego forever. Eventually, life humbles everyone through change. This is why impermanence can actually become a source of wisdom, too. It reminds you not to cling too tightly to anything external, because all external things eventually transform. Your appearance changes. Your environment changes. Your relationships change. Into your emotions change. Your life circumstances change. And strangely, accepting this truth creates peace instead of despair. Because now you stop wasting energy fighting reality constantly, too. Many people are exhausted, not because life is impossible, but because they are mentally resisting reality every single day. They argue internally with change. They replay the past. They fear the future. They desperately try to keep life frozen in one comfortable form, but life was never designed to stay still. Buddhism teaches that peace comes from flowing with reality, not from controlling it completely. The moment you stop demanding permanence, your mind becomes lighter too. You stop obsessing over every ending. You stop fearing uncertainty so intensely. You stop trying to force people and situations to remain unchanged forever. Instead, you begin living more fully. You appreciate moments while they exist. You love people while they are present. You experience life more deeply because you understand its temporary nature. Impermanence makes life meaningful, too. Without endings, beginnings would not matter. Without change, growth would not exist. Without temporary moments, beauty would lose its emotional depth. Even pain itself teaches wisdom because it eventually transforms you. Many people become stronger, wiser, calmer, and more compassionate precisely because life changed them through difficult experiences. But this wisdom only becomes possible when you stop resisting every uncomfortable chapter. Buddhism teaches that life is like a river. You cannot stop the river from moving. Too. You cannot freeze water permanently. You cannot hold every moment forever. But you can learn how to flow with the river peacefully instead of drowning in resistance. And once you deeply understand this, something beautiful happens inside you. Life stops feeling like an endless battle against change. You stop trying to control every wave, too. You stop panicking every time life shifts direction. You stop emotionally collapsing because temporary things changed form. Instead, you become calmer, more present, more aware, more emotionally free. Because now Your peace no longer depends entirely on life remaining the same. Your peace comes from understanding life itself, and that understanding changes everything. 2. The more you accept impermanence, the less life can control you emotionally, because fear weakens when attachment weakens. Suffering decreases when resistance decreases. And peace begins the moment you stop demanding forever from a world that was always meant to flow. 10. One day, you will realize nothing was ever truly yours to keep forever. One of the deepest teachings in Buddhism is the understanding that everything we experience in life is temporary. 2. Nothing truly belongs to us forever. Not people, not possessions, not emotions, not success, not youth, and not even the body we live in. Everything we touch in this world eventually changes, fades, transforms, or disappears with time. Most human suffering begins when people refuse to accept this truth. 2. They spend their lives trying to hold on to things as if they can permanently own them. 2. They become emotionally attached to relationships, achievements, identities, comfort, routines, and expectations. Deep down, they want life to stay exactly the same because change feels frightening. But life has never promised permanence to anyone. One day, every person realizes this truth, whether they are ready or not. The people you love will not stay exactly the same forever. The life you have today will eventually change. Your current struggles will change. Your current happiness will change. Even the version of yourself reading these words right now is slowly changing with time. Buddhism teaches that suffering increases when we confuse temporary experiences with permanent possessions. People say things like, my success, my relationship, my future, my image, my life. But the truth is, much of what we think we control is actually temporary and constantly changing too. This does not mean life is meaningless. It means life is fragile and precious. Think about how much fear people carry every day because of attachment. They fear losing relationships. They fear aging. They fear failure. They fear rejection. They fear uncertainties. The mind constantly worries because it wants guarantees that life can never fully provide. Even during beautiful moments, many people cannot relax completely because deep down they are afraid the moment will end. This is what attachment does to the human mind. Instead of allowing people to enjoy life peacefully, attachment fills them with fear of loss. A person falls in love and immediately fears abandonment. Someone achieves success and immediately fears losing status. A person gains money and becomes terrified of instability. Two, even happiness becomes stressful because people desperately try to preserve it forever. But Buddhism teaches that true peace begins when you stop trying to own life completely. Two, you begin understanding that life is an experience, not a possession. Everything you experience is passing through your life temporarily. Relationships are experiences. Emotions are experiences. Success is an experience. Pain is an experience. Even your physical body is temporary. At first, this truth sounds uncomfortable. The ego wants permanence. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees, too. But once you deeply understand impermanence, your entire relationship with life changes. You stop clinging so tightly. Many people destroy their own peace because they constantly try to hold on to moments that already ended. They replay old memories every day because they cannot accept that certain chapters are over. Two, they emotionally live in the past because they refuse to allow life to continue flowing naturally. But no chapter of life was designed to last forever. Childhood disappears. People grow older. Two, relationships evolve. Situations change. Entire phases of life quietly vanish while new ones appear. This is not punishment. This is life itself. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from demanding permanence in a world built on impermanence. The more tightly you grip life, the more pain you create for yourself. Two, imagine trying to hold water tightly in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Human attachment works the same way. The more desperately people try to control life and prevent change, the more anxiety and suffering they experience. This is why some people remain emotionally exhausted for years. They are mentally fighting reality every single day. They fight aging. They fight endings. They fight uncertainty. They fight the natural movement of life. Do. And because of this constant resistance, peace becomes impossible. Buddhism teaches something very powerful. You suffer less when you stop trying to possess everything forever. This does not mean you stop loving people. It does not mean you stop caring about life. It simply means you stop expecting temporary things to give you permanent emotional security. Two, you begin appreciating life more deeply because you understand its temporary nature. Think about how much more meaningful moments become once you realize they cannot last forever. Two, a conversation with someone you love becomes more valuable. A peaceful morning becomes more valuable. Even ordinary moments become beautiful because you understand they are temporary. Impermanence does not remove meaning from life. It creates meaning. without endings. Moments would lose their emotional depth. People only realize the value of time because time eventually disappears. One day, people suddenly realize that the moments they once ignored were actually the most important parts of life. The simple evenings, the laughter, the conversations, the peaceful days they thought would last forever. But by the time they realize this, many moments are already gone too. This is why Buddhism constantly reminds people to wake up and become conscious less while life is happening. Most people are physically alive, but mentally absent too. Their mind constantly lives somewhere else. They replay the past, fear the future, compare themselves to others, or obsess over problems that may never even happen. Meanwhile, life quietly passes by. Years disappear, people change, opportunities vanish. Time moves forward without asking anyone for permission. And one day people look back wondering where their life went to. Buddhism teaches that awareness of impermanence is not supposed to create hopelessness. It is supposed to awaken gratitude too. When you deeply understand that nothing lasts forever, you stop taking life for granted. You stop delaying happiness endlessly too. You stop wasting years carrying unnecessary resentment and emotional pain. Because suddenly you realize you do not have forever. The argument you keep holding on to may not matter years from now. The fear controlling your mind today may eventually disappear completely. The people around you right now will not always be here forever, and neither will you too. This truth may sound heavy, but Buddhism teaches that awareness of death and impermanence actually helps people live more peacefully. It removes illusion. It reminds you to focus on what truly matters instead of wasting life chasing endless attachment and control too. Many people spend their lives trying to impress others, accumulate status, or prove their worth. But eventually, all external things fade. Beauty fades, money changes, social validation disappears too. Titles disappear. Even memories slowly fade with time. So, what truly remains? Buddhism teaches that inner peace, awareness, compassion, wisdom, and presence are far more valuable than external possessions because they are not completely dependent on temporary conditions. Two, the person who understands impermanence becomes emotionally lighter. They still love deeply, but they stop trying to imprison people emotionally. They still enjoy success, but they stop building their entire identity around it. They still live fully, but they stop expecting permanence from every experience. This creates freedom because now life no longer controls your emotions as easily. Many people suffer constantly because their emotional stability depends entirely on external circumstances remaining stable too. But external life will always change. The person who depends completely on permanence will always live in fear. Fear of loss, fear of endings, fear of uncertainty, fear of change. But the moment you accept impermanence fully, fear begins weakening. Because now you understand loss is part of life. Change is part of life. Endings are part of life. And nothing was ever truly yours to keep forever. Even pain itself becomes easier to handle once you understand this truth. During difficult moments, you remind yourself that suffering also changes. Emotions rise and fall naturally. No storm remains forever. This understanding creates patience during hard seasons. Instead of mentally collapsing, you begin trusting life more deeply. You stop reacting permanently to temporary situations. You stop believing every painful moment defines your entire future. Because life keeps moving. Buddhism often compares existence to flowing water. Water never remains completely still. It moves, changes shape, adapts, and continues forward naturally. Human life works the same way, too. But many people mentally exhaust themselves trying to freeze life into one permanent form. They want permanent certainty, permanent comfort, permanent emotional security. But permanence does not exist in this world. And strangely, once you stop demanding permanence, peace begins entering your life. You begin enjoying moments without trying to own them. Two, you begin loving people without controlling them. You begin accepting life instead of constantly arguing with reality. This does not make life less emotional. It makes life more authentic too. Because now you understand that every moment matters precisely because it cannot last forever. A flower blooms beautifully because it eventually fades. Music feels emotional because it eventually ends. Human life because time is limited. Impermanence gives value to existence. Once you deeply understand this truth, your priorities begin changing naturally. You stop wasting energy on meaningless drama. You stop obsessing over things that do not truly matter. You stop carrying endless emotional baggage from the past because now you realize something powerful. One day, everything changes anyway. The pain changes. The people change too. The circumstances change. The identity you have today changes. Life continues flowing no matter how tightly the mind tries to hold on to. And instead of fearing this truth, Buddhism teaches you to make peace with it because true peace does not come from controlling life perfectly. True peace comes from understanding the nature of life itself. And the nature of life is change. The moment you stop demanding forever from temporary things, your suffering begins becoming lighter to you. You breathe more deeply. You appreciate life more honestly. You stop fearing every ending so intensely, and slowly you begin living with a calmer heart. Because deep down, you finally understand nothing was ever truly yours to keep forever. Life was always meant to be experienced, appreciated, and eventually released.
The moment you stop clinging to life, you finally begin to live. Most people are not truly living peacefully. They are surviving emotionally while constantly trying to control life. They cling to relationships, cling to comfort, cling to old memories, cling to expectations, and cling to the illusion that things will stay the same forever. Because of this attachment, fear quietly controls their entire life. They fear losing people. They fear losing stability. They fear losing control. They fear uncertainty. They fear endings. And without realizing it, they spend most of their life anxious instead of fully alive. Buddhism teaches that the deeper the attachment, the deeper the suffering. The human mind becomes trapped because it keeps demanding permanence from a world that was never designed to remain still. Everything changes. No matter how much people try to avoid this truth, life eventually reveals it to everyone. Relationships evolve. Bodies age. Emotions shift. Seasons of life come and go. Entire chapters disappear quietly, while new ones begin without warning. Yet many people continue mentally fighting this natural process every single day. They become emotionally attached to old versions of life. They replay memories repeatedly because they cannot accept change. They continue chasing people who already emotionally left. They become angry at reality simply because reality refused to remain frozen in one comfortable form forever. But Buddhism teaches that true peace begins the moment you stop trying to hold life so tightly. Most suffering does not come from change itself. It comes from resistance to change. A relationship ending is painful, but constantly refusing to accept the ending creates even deeper suffering. Failure hurts, but defining your entire identity through one painful moment creates long-term emotional suffering. Aging is natural, but mentally fighting time every day creates unnecessary fear and anxiety. The human mind often suffers more from attachment than from reality itself. This is why Buddhism teaches the importance of letting go, not because life is meaningless, but because clinging destroys inner peace. The tighter people hold on to temporary things, the more terrified they become when life inevitably changes. Think about how much emotional energy people waste trying to preserve things forever. Some spend years trying to keep unhealthy relationships alive because they fear loneliness more than suffering. Some continue carrying old resentment because they cannot let go of what happened in the past. Some become obsessed with success because they believe achievement will finally give them permanent security. Some spend their lives trying to maintain a perfect image because they fear rejection and judgment. But no external thing can provide permanent emotional safety. Buddhism teaches that the moment you deeply understand impermanence, your relationship with life changes completely. You stop treating temporary experiences as permanent possessions. You stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world. And slowly, fear begins losing control over your mind. Many people believe letting go means giving up on life. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Letting go allows you to experience life more fully, because now your mind is no longer imprisoned by constant fear of loss. When you stop clinging, love becomes healthier. Peace becomes deeper. Life becomes lighter. You begin appreciating moments while they exist, instead of desperately trying to freeze them forever. This is one reason why many people cannot enjoy the present moment. Even during happy experiences, fear quietly follows them. While spending time with someone they love, they fear losing them someday. While experiencing success, they fear failure. While enjoying peace, they fear future problems. The mind keeps turning beautiful moments into anxiety because attachment creates fear. Buddhism teaches that peace becomes possible only when you stop demanding permanence from temporary experiences. This does not mean becoming emotionally numb. It means learning how to love without possession. It means understanding that everything in life is passing through temporarily. The people around you are temporary. Your emotions are temporary. Your circumstances are temporary. Even the body you live in is temporary. At first, this truth feels uncomfortable because the ego wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants control over life. But the more you chase absolute control, the more anxious your life becomes. Because life itself cannot be controlled completely. No matter how carefully you plan, uncertainty still exists. No matter how much you love someone, people still change. No matter how successful you become, life still transforms over time. This is why Buddhism teaches acceptance instead of endless resistance. Many people mentally exhaust themselves trying to stop life from moving naturally. They fight every ending. They panic during every uncomfortable season. They become emotionally attached to expectations about how life should unfold. But life rarely follows human expectations perfectly. Sometimes doors close unexpectedly. Sometimes plans fail. Sometimes people leave. Sometimes painful situations appear without warning. And during these moments, people often emotionally collapse because they built their peace entirely on external stability. But Buddhism teaches that true peace cannot depend completely on external conditions, because external conditions always change. Real peace comes from inner understanding. The person who understands impermanence deeply stops reacting to life the same way. Difficult moments still hurt, but they no longer create total emotional destruction. Why? Because now the person understands that life moves in cycles. Pain changes. Fear changes. Confusion changes. Even suffering itself changes with time. No emotional storm lasts forever. Think about your own life carefully. There were moments you once believed would destroy you emotionally. Maybe heartbreak, loneliness, failure, rejection or uncertainty once felt unbearable. But eventually, those emotions changed. Time continued moving. Life continued flowing. Even your identity transformed. The person you were years ago no longer fully exists. Your thoughts changed. Your emotional understanding changed. Your priorities changed. Life reshaped you again and again without asking permission. This is the nature of existence. Buddhism teaches that suffering becomes lighter when you stop expecting permanence from life. The more flexible your mind becomes, the more peaceful your life becomes. A rigid mind suffers deeply because it constantly fights reality. A flexible mind adapts, heals, and continues flowing forward. This is why wise people often appear calmer during uncertainty. It is not because they never experience pain. It is because they understand something most people forget. Everything changes eventually. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop taking every difficult moment as the end of your life story. You stop reacting permanently to temporary situations. Instead of saying, "My life is ruined forever," you begin understanding, "This moment is painful, but it will also change. That realization creates emotional freedom. Many people suffer because they unknowingly worship permanence. They believe happiness depends on keeping everything stable forever. But stability itself is temporary. Even the calmest seasons eventually transform into something new. This truth sounds frightening only to the person still trying to control life completely. But to the person who accepts impermanence, this truth becomes liberating. Because now you stop carrying the impossible burden of trying to freeze reality forever. You stop needing every relationship to last permanently. You stop needing every plan to succeed perfectly. You stop needing life to remain comfortable every moment. And strangely, this acceptance allows you to experience life more deeply than before. A simple moment becomes meaningful because you understand it cannot last forever. A peaceful conversation becomes meaningful because you understand time moves quickly. Even ordinary days become valuable because you understand they are temporary. Impermanence creates appreciation. Without endings, moments would lose emotional depth. Music becomes emotional because songs end. Sunsets become beautiful because they disappear. Human life becomes meaningful because time is limited. Buddhism teaches that awareness of impermanence should wake you up, not depress you. It should remind you to live consciously, to love fully, to stop wasting years trapped inside overthinking and emotional attachment. Many people postpone peace endlessly. They say, "I will finally relax later. I will enjoy life after success. I will become peaceful when all problems disappear." But life continues passing while the mind waits for perfect conditions that never fully arrive. And one day, people suddenly realize they spent most of their life worrying instead of living. Buddhism teaches that this moment matters because it cannot return again. The people around you will change. Your current chapter of life will disappear. Even the struggles you carry today will eventually become memories. Nothing remains forever. And strangely, this truth can make life feel more beautiful instead of less meaningful. Because now, you stop treating time casually. You stop wasting energy on meaningless attachment. You stop allowing fear to control every decision. Instead, you begin living with awareness. You appreciate what exists while it exists. You release what no longer belongs in your life. You stop clinging so tightly to temporary forms. And slowly, a deeper peace begins growing inside you. Not the fragile peace built on perfect circumstances, but the stronger peace built on understanding reality itself. A peace that remains steady even while life continues changing around you. This is what Buddhism teaches. Freedom is not found by controlling life perfectly. Freedom is found when you stop mentally fighting the natural flow of existence. The moment you stop clinging, fear weakens. The moment you stop demanding permanence, suffering decreases. The moment you accept change, your mind becomes lighter. And for the first time, you begin understanding what it truly means to live peacefully. Because life was never meant to stay still forever. It was always meant to flow. 11. The greatest freedom in life is learning how to let go. Most people spend their entire lives trying to hold on to everything. They hold on to old pain, old memories, old identities, old relationships, old expectations, and old fears. Even when life clearly wants to move forward, the mind keeps returning to what is already gone. And because of this attachment, many people never experience real peace. Buddhism teaches that one of the greatest forms of freedom is learning how to let go. Not because life is meaningless, but because clinging to everything creates endless suffering. The more tightly you hold on to temporary things, the heavier your heart becomes. Think about how many people are emotionally trapped by the past. Some still suffer from heartbreak that happened years ago. Some still replay old mistakes every single day. Some still carry anger toward people who are no longer even part of their life. Some still define themselves by painful experiences that already ended long ago. Life continues moving forward, but mentally they remain stuck in the same emotional place. This is what attachment does to the human mind. It chains people to moments that no longer exist. Instead of living in the present, they keep emotionally living inside memories, regrets, fears, and expectations. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows whenever we refuse to release what no longer belongs to us. Many people believe holding on makes them strong, but often holding on is what keeps them emotionally exhausted. Real strength sometimes means accepting that a chapter has ended and allowing life to continue naturally. But letting go is difficult because the ego fears emptiness. The human mind becomes attached even to suffering because suffering feels familiar. Some people would rather stay trapped in known pain than step into uncertainty. Even toxic relationships become difficult to leave because attachment creates emotional dependence. This is why many people continue chasing what is already gone. They chase old versions of people. They chase old memories. They chase situations that no longer exist. And while doing this, they completely miss the life unfolding in front of them. Buddhism teaches that nothing in life was ever meant to stay forever. Every experience arrives temporarily and eventually changes form. Relationships change. Emotions change. Circumstances change. Even the identity you have right now is slowly transforming. The more you resist this truth, the more suffering enters your life. Many people destroy their peace because they keep mentally arguing with reality. They constantly think, "This should not have happened. They should not have left. My life should still look the same." But reality does not change because we emotionally resist it. This resistance becomes emotional suffering. Letting go does not mean pretending something never mattered. It does not mean becoming cold, emotionless, or disconnected from life. Buddhism does not teach emotional numbness. It teaches acceptance. You can love deeply and still let go peacefully. You can appreciate someone and still accept their absence. You can honor memories without becoming imprisoned by them forever. This is emotional maturity. Many people confuse attachment with love. But attachment often comes from fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of uncertainty, fear of losing control. Real peace begins when love no longer depends entirely on possession. Think about nature for a moment. Trees let go of leaves every season without resistance. Rivers continue flowing without clinging to the water behind them. The sky allows storms to pass without trying to trap them forever. Nature itself understands impermanence better than most human beings. But the human mind constantly wants permanence in a temporary world. It wants guarantees that relationships will never change. It wants certainty about the future. It wants emotional security from things that were never designed to last forever. And because life cannot provide permanent certainty, people remain anxious. Buddhism teaches that freedom begins the moment you stop demanding permanence from life. The moment you stop clinging, something inside you becomes lighter. The emotional weight slowly decreases. You stop carrying the impossible burden of trying to preserve every moment forever. Many people are emotionally exhausted not because life is impossible, but because they refuse to release what is already gone. They replay conversations repeatedly. They overthink endings endlessly. They continue emotionally feeding wounds that are trying to heal. And because of this, they keep suffering long after the original pain already passed. The human mind has a powerful tendency to reopen old pain. Someone hurts us once, but mentally we revisit the pain thousands of times. We relive old situations repeatedly until suffering becomes part of our identity. Buddhism teaches that healing becomes possible when attachment weakens. This does not happen overnight. Letting go is often a slow inner process. Sometimes the heart accepts reality much later than the mind. Sometimes healing takes time. Buddhism understands this deeply. But the path toward peace still begins with acceptance. Acceptance means understanding that some things are not meant to remain forever. Some people enter your life only for a season. Some experiences exist only to teach you something. Some endings happen because growth requires change, but many people resist endings because they believe endings automatically mean failure. Buddhism teaches the opposite. Sometimes endings are necessary transformations. A painful chapter may create wisdom. A loss may create strength. A difficult ending may guide you toward a more peaceful path later in life. But none of this becomes visible while the mind remains trapped in resistance. This is why letting go creates freedom. When you stop clinging to old pain, you create space for healing. When you stop clinging to unhealthy relationships, you create space for peace. When you stop clinging to old identities, you create space for growth. Life cannot fully enter your future while your mind remains imprisoned by the past. Many people unknowingly carry emotional baggage everywhere they go. Even during peaceful moments, their mind continues carrying resentment, regret, fear, guilt, and attachment from years ago. Their body moves forward, but emotionally they remain trapped. Buddhism teaches that freedom is not only external. Real freedom is internal. A person may appear successful externally while remaining emotionally chained inside. Another person may have simple circumstances but experience deep peace because they learned how to release attachment. This is why inner freedom matters more than external control. Many people spend years trying to control life perfectly while ignoring their own mind completely. They believe peace comes from controlling every situation. But Buddhism teaches that peace comes from understanding the nature of life itself. And the nature of life is change. Nothing remains still forever. No experience stays permanently. No emotion lasts forever. Even suffering eventually changes form. The person who understands this deeply stops reacting to life the same way. They still feel emotions, they still experience pain, but they stop becoming completely destroyed by temporary situations because they understand everything moves in cycles. A painful season changes. A confusing season changes. A lonely season changes. Even the darkest moments eventually transform into something else. This understanding creates resilience. Many people suffer because they secretly believe their current pain will last forever. During difficult moments, the mind convinces them, you will never feel peace again, life will never improve, you will never heal. But Buddhism reminds us that life is always flowing. Nothing remains frozen forever. The same person who feels broken today may become deeply peaceful years later. The same pain that once nearly destroyed someone may eventually become the source of their wisdom and compassion. This is why letting go is not weakness. It is trust in the flow of life. It is understanding that life keeps moving even when the mind wants to stay attached to one chapter forever. Buddhism teaches that true peace appears when you stop trying to hold life too tightly. The more flexible your mind becomes, the lighter your suffering becomes. Rigid attachment creates fear. Acceptance creates peace. This is why wise people often appear calmer during change. They understand that fighting reality endlessly only creates more suffering. Instead of clinging desperately to every situation, they learn how to flow with life more naturally. Flowing with life does not mean giving up responsibility. It means releasing unnecessary resistance. You still care, you still love, you still work toward meaningful things, but you stop emotionally collapsing every time life changes direction. Many people spend their entire lives trying to avoid change, but change is what allows growth to happen. Without endings, new beginnings could never appear. Without loss, many people would never discover their inner strength. Without uncertainty, people would never grow beyond comfort. Life continuously reshapes human beings through change. The problem is not change itself. The problem is attachment to stability. Buddhism teaches that once you stop clinging so tightly, life becomes less frightening. Fear weakens because attachment weakens. Anxiety decreases because you stop demanding impossible certainty from life. And slowly, a different kind of peace begins appearing inside you. A peace not dependent on perfect circumstances. A peace not dependent on permanent comfort. A peace rooted in acceptance. This peace remains steady even while life continues changing around you. Because now you finally understand something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: nothing was ever truly meant to stay forever. And instead of fearing this truth, you begin flowing with it peacefully. That is freedom. That is wisdom. And according to Buddhism, that is the beginning of true inner peace. 11. The day you truly accept impermanence, your entire life changes. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape change. They search for permanent security in relationships, money, success, routines, and comfort. Deep inside, they want life to become predictable and stable forever. They want guarantees that nothing painful will happen, no one important will leave, and nothing they love will ever disappear. But Buddhism teaches that suffering begins the moment we expect permanence from a world built entirely on change. Everything in life moves. Time moves. People move. Emotions move. Seasons move. Life itself keeps flowing, whether we are ready for it or not. Yet most people continue mentally fighting this truth every single day. They become attached to moments and expect them to last forever. They hold on to old versions of people. They resist endings. They fear uncertainty. And because life never stops changing, they remain emotionally anxious almost all the time. This is why so many people cannot experience real peace. Their peace depends completely on life staying exactly the way they want it to stay. But life was never designed to remain still forever. One day, every relationship changes in some way. One day, every human body ages. One day, every season of life transforms into another season. One day, every success fades or changes form. One day, every person must face endings, uncertainty, and loss. This truth sounds painful only to the mind that is still desperately clinging to permanence. Buddhism teaches that impermanence is not the enemy. Resistance to impermanence is the real source of suffering. Think about how much emotional pain people create simply because they refuse to accept reality. Someone leaves their life, but mentally they continue chasing the past for years. A painful chapter ends, but emotionally they keep reopening the wound every day. Life changes direction, but they continue fighting against what already happened, instead of adapting peacefully. The suffering often lasts far longer than the original event itself, because the mind refuses to let go. This is why Buddhism places so much importance on acceptance. Acceptance does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop mentally arguing with reality every moment of your life. Many people believe peace will come after they finally control everything perfectly. They think, if I can just keep everyone I love forever, then I will feel safe. If I can avoid uncertainty, then I will finally relax. If life stays stable, then I will finally become peaceful. But life cannot provide permanent certainty, and because of this, people who depend entirely on external stability for inner peace remain emotionally fragile. Every small change shakes them deeply because their mind is attached to permanence. Buddhism teaches something completely different. Peace comes from understanding change, not escaping it. The moment you truly understand impermanence, your relationship with life begins transforming. You stop taking temporary situations so personally. You stop panicking every time life changes direction. You stop expecting forever from temporary experiences. And slowly, your mind becomes lighter. Most people suffer because they unconsciously believe their current situation will last forever. During painful moments, they think, "I will never recover. I will never feel peace again. My life is ruined forever." But Buddhism reminds us that everything changes. The pain changes, the fear changes, the confusion changes. Even the identity you have today changes over time. Nothing remains frozen forever. Think about your own life carefully. There were probably moments you once thought would emotionally destroy you forever. Maybe heartbreak, loneliness, rejection, failure, or uncertainty once felt unbearable. Yet somehow life continued moving. Your emotions slowly changed, your understanding changed. You became a different person through those experiences. This is the nature of existence. Life keeps flowing. Many people become trapped because they try to freeze life into one comfortable form permanently. But life is more like a river than a statue. Rivers move continuously. Water changes shape constantly. The moment you try to hold the river still forever, struggle begins. Human suffering works the same way. The more tightly people try to control life, the more anxious they become. Because deep down they know life cannot be controlled completely. No matter how carefully you plan, uncertainty still exists. No matter how deeply you love someone, people still change. No matter how successful you become, external conditions still shift over time. This is why attachment creates fear. The mind becomes terrified of losing what it clings to. Instead of enjoying life peacefully, people become emotionally consumed by fear of change. Someone falls in love and immediately fears abandonment. Someone becomes successful and immediately fears failure. Someone finds peace and immediately fears losing it. The mind constantly worries because attachment turns life into something fragile. Buddhism teaches that freedom begins when attachment weakens. This does not mean you stop loving people or enjoying life. It simply means you stop trying to imprison temporary experiences forever. You begin appreciating life while understanding that everything eventually changes. And strangely, this understanding makes life more beautiful. A moment becomes precious because it cannot last forever. A conversation becomes meaningful because time moves quickly. A peaceful day becomes valuable because life constantly changes. Impermanence gives emotional depth to existence. Without endings, life would lose urgency. Without change, growth would not exist. Without temporary moments, beauty would lose meaning. This is why Buddhism teaches awareness of impermanence, not to make people hopeless, but to wake them up. Most people live unconsciously. Their body exists in the present moment, but mentally they live somewhere else, completely. They replay the past endlessly, or worry about the future constantly. Meanwhile, real life quietly passes by. Years disappear. People grow older. Moments vanish forever. And many people only realize the value of life after time already passed. Impermanence teaches you to wake up before it is too late. It teaches you to appreciate ordinary moments, to stop wasting years carrying unnecessary resentment, to stop postponing happiness endlessly, to stop assuming there will always be more time later. Because one day, everything changes. The people around you right now will not always be here forever. The opportunities you have today may not exist later. Even the struggles consuming your mind right now will eventually disappear. Life keeps moving, whether the mind accepts it or not. Buddhism teaches that once you deeply understand this truth, fear begins losing its power over you. You stop fearing endings so intensely because you realize endings are natural. You stop fearing uncertainty so deeply because you understand uncertainty is part of existence. You stop fearing change because you finally see that change has always been happening. Even your own identity has never remained completely stable. The person you were 5 years ago is already gone. Your mindset changed. Your emotional understanding changed. Your priorities changed. Your desires changed. Life reshapes human beings constantly. Many people suffer because they cling too tightly to old versions of themselves. They continue defining themselves through past mistakes, past pain, or old identities that no longer match who they are becoming. But Buddhism teaches that transformation is natural. The moment you stop resisting change, growth becomes easier. You stop emotionally fighting reality every day. Instead of desperately trying to preserve the past forever, you begin allowing life to evolve naturally. This creates emotional flexibility. A flexible mind heals faster. A flexible mind adapts more peacefully. A flexible mind suffers less because it does not demand impossible certainty from life. This is why wise people often appear calmer during difficult situations. It is not because they never experience pain. It is because they understand something most people forget. Everything changes eventually. Even suffering changes. A painful season that once felt endless eventually transforms into another season. Life continues flowing no matter how permanent emotions may feel in the moment. This understanding creates resilience. Instead of collapsing emotionally during difficult moments, you begin reminding yourself, this too will change. And that simple understanding can completely transform the way you experience life. Many people destroy themselves mentally because they react permanently to temporary situations. One painful event happens, and they emotionally surrender their entire future to despair. But Buddhism teaches patience with life. Storms pass, pain changes, healing happens slowly, growth appears through time, life keeps moving. And the person who understands impermanence stops becoming completely consumed by temporary emotions. They still feel sadness, heartbreak, fear, and uncertainty, but they no longer believe these emotions define reality forever. This creates inner peace, not because life becomes perfect, but because the mind stops demanding perfection from life. Buddhism teaches that true peace is not found in controlling every external situation. True peace is found in understanding the nature of existence itself. And the nature of existence is impermanence. Everything changes eventually. Once you fully accept this truth, something powerful happens inside you. You stop clinging so tightly. You stop fearing change constantly. You stop mentally fighting reality every day. Instead, you begin flowing with life more naturally. You appreciate moments while they exist. You love people while they are present. You release what no longer belongs in your journey. You stop wasting years trapped inside attachment and resistance. And slowly, your suffering becomes lighter. Because now your peace no longer depends entirely on life remaining stable forever. Your peace comes from understanding life deeply. You finally understand that life was never meant to stay still. It was always meant to move, transform, disappear, and begin again. And instead of fearing this truth, you finally make peace with it. That is wisdom. That is freedom. And according to Buddhism, that is the beginning of true inner peace. 12. When you stop fighting change, life becomes peaceful again. Most people are exhausted not because life is impossible, but because they are constantly fighting reality. They fight change, fight uncertainty, fight endings, and fight situations they cannot fully control. Their mind is always arguing with life internally. They say, "This should not have happened. My life should be different. They should not have left. Things should still be the way they were before." And because of this constant resistance, they suffer deeply. Buddhism teaches that suffering often begins the moment we refuse to accept the natural movement of life. Everything changes. Everything moves. Nothing remains exactly the same forever. Yet the human mind desperately wants permanence in a temporary world. People want permanent happiness, permanent relationships, permanent comfort, permanent certainty. But life has never promised these things to anyone. One day every human being must face change. Some changes are beautiful, others are painful. Some changes arrive slowly, while others appear suddenly without warning. But no matter how much we resist, life continues flowing forward. This is one of the hardest truths for the human mind to accept. Many people spend years emotionally trapped because they cannot stop fighting reality. They continue replaying the past, wishing things stayed the same forever. Instead of adapting to the present moment, they mentally live inside old memories and old pain. But Buddhism teaches that peace becomes possible only when resistance begins to disappear. Think about how much emotional suffering comes from trying to control things that were never fully controllable. People try to control how others feel about them. They try controlling the future. They try controlling how life unfolds. They try controlling change itself. And because none of these things can ever be controlled completely, anxiety slowly takes over their mind. The more tightly people grip life, the more fear they experience. Deep down, the mind knows that everything external is temporary. This is why attachment creates insecurity. The moment someone becomes emotionally dependent on temporary things for peace, fear immediately follows. A person falls in love and fears abandonment. A person becomes successful and fears failure. A person gains comfort and fears losing stability. Even beautiful moments become stressful because attachment turns enjoyment into fear of loss. Buddhism teaches something very powerful. Peace is not found by stopping change. Peace is found by learning how to move with change. Life is like a river. Rivers never stay still. Water continuously moves, changes direction, and adapts naturally to every obstacle. Human life works the same way. Every moment transforms into another moment. Every season becomes another season. But many people mentally behave as if life should remain frozen forever. When life changes direction, they panic. When people change, they suffer. When plans fail, they emotionally collapse. Not because change itself is impossible to survive, but because the mind was attached to permanence. This is why Buddhism teaches non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean you stop loving people or caring about life. It means you stop demanding that temporary things remain permanent forever. You begin understanding that every experience is temporary. Relationships are temporary. Emotions are temporary. Success is temporary. Pain is temporary. Even your current identity is temporary. This understanding creates emotional freedom. Many people suffer because they believe their current situation defines their entire future forever. During painful moments, they become hopeless because they cannot imagine life changing again. But life always changes. The person who feels lost today may become deeply peaceful years later. The person experiencing heartbreak today may eventually discover wisdom and strength through the experience. The person struggling right now may later realize that difficult seasons transformed them completely. Nothing remains frozen forever. This is why Buddhism teaches patience during difficult times. Storms pass. Pain changes shape. Human beings heal slowly. But healing becomes difficult when the mind constantly resists reality and refuses to let life move naturally. Some people continue suffering from one painful chapter for decades because they never emotionally accepted what happened. The body moved forward through time, but mentally they remain trapped in the same moment. This is what resistance does. Resistance keeps old pain alive. Resistance prevents healing. Resistance creates emotional exhaustion. Buddhism teaches that acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is wisdom. It means understanding that reality already exists exactly as it is. Fighting reality mentally every day only creates more suffering. Imagine carrying a heavy bag everywhere you go without ever putting it down. Eventually your body becomes exhausted. Emotional attachment works the same way. The more unresolved pain, resentment, fear and resistance you carry inside your mind, the heavier life feels. Many people are not only suffering from life itself, they are suffering from everything they refuse to release. Old anger, old guilt, old heart, old expectations, old fears. The mind keeps holding these things tightly because it believes letting go means losing control. But Buddhism teaches that clinging is what creates suffering in the first place. True peace begins the moment you loosen your grip on life. This does not mean becoming passive or emotionless. It means learning how to experience life without becoming completely destroyed every time something changes. You still love deeply. You still care. You still work hard. You still feel emotions. But you stop demanding that life obey your expectations perfectly. Many people unknowingly spend their lives chasing impossible certainty. They believe peace will finally arrive once they eliminate every problem and secure every part of life permanently. But uncertainty is part of existence itself. No one fully knows what tomorrow will bring. No one can completely prevent change. No one can control every outcome forever. And strangely, once you stop demanding total certainty from life, your anxiety begins decreasing. Because now you understand that uncertainty was never the enemy. Resistance to uncertainty was the real problem. Buddhism teaches that freedom comes when the mind stops fighting reality constantly. The moment you accept that life changes naturally, something inside you softens. You stop reacting so aggressively to every shift in life. You stop seeing every ending as a disaster. You stop believing every painful moment will last forever. Instead, you begin trusting the flow of life more deeply. This trust creates inner calm, not because life becomes easy, but because your relationship with life changes completely. A person who understands impermanence no longer expects every season to remain comfortable forever. They know difficult periods are part of life, but they also know difficult periods eventually change. This creates resilience. Most people become emotionally fragile because they expect permanent comfort. When life becomes painful or uncertain, they panic because reality no longer matches their expectations. But Buddhism teaches that suffering decreases when expectations become more aligned with reality. Reality is change. Reality is uncertainty. Reality is impermanence. Once you stop resisting these truths, your mind becomes much calmer. Think about nature again. Trees do not panic when seasons change. The ocean does not resist waves. The sky does not fight storms. Nature flows naturally because nature does not cling. But human beings often mentally cling to everything. They cling to comfort, control, identity, status, and expectations. And because life constantly changes, the mind remains in constant fear. Buddhism teaches that wisdom is learning how to flow with life instead of constantly fighting against it. This does not mean you stop improving yourself or creating goals. It simply means your inner peace no longer depends entirely on external stability, because external stability always changes eventually. Many people think peace comes from controlling life perfectly, But true peace comes from understanding life deeply. And once you deeply understand impermanence, something beautiful begins happening inside you. You become less afraid of change, less afraid of endings, less afraid of uncertainty. You stop needing everything to stay the same forever in order to feel okay. And because of this, life becomes lighter. You begin appreciating moments instead of trying to possess them. You begin loving people without trying to control their entire journey. You begin accepting reality instead of mentally arguing with it every day. This creates emotional freedom. Many people spend their entire lives waiting for life to finally become perfect before allowing themselves to feel peace. But Buddhism teaches that peace is available right now for the person who stops fighting reality. The present moment becomes calmer when resistance disappears. Instead of constantly asking, "Why is life changing?" you begin understanding life was always meant to change. This realization transforms everything. Because now you stop wasting energy trying to freeze life forever. You stop carrying impossible emotional burdens. You stop allowing fear to dominate your mind constantly. And slowly, a deeper peace begins growing inside you. Not the fragile peace built on perfect circumstances, but a stronger peace built on wisdom, acceptance, and awareness. A peace that remains steady even while life continues changing around you. This is why Buddhism teaches that real freedom does not come from controlling life completely. Real freedom comes from learning how to flow with life peacefully. The moment you stop fighting change, suffering begins becoming lighter. The moment you stop clinging to permanence, fear begins weakening. The moment you accept impermanence, life becomes peaceful again. Because life was never meant to stay still forever. It was always meant to flow. 13. The more you understand life, the less you need to control everything. Most people spend their lives trying to control things that were never truly in their control. They try controlling people, controlling outcomes, controlling the future, controlling how others see them, and even controlling how life itself unfolds. Deep inside, they believe that if they can just control enough things successfully, they will finally feel peaceful and safe. But Buddhism teaches that this constant need for control is one of the biggest causes of emotional suffering. The human mind fears uncertainty. It wants guarantees. It wants life to move according to personal expectations. This is why people become anxious when situations change unexpectedly. The moment life becomes uncertain, fear immediately enters the mind. Someone loses a relationship, and they panic because life no longer feels predictable. Someone faces failure, and they emotionally collapse because reality did not follow their plans. Someone experiences change, and they suffer deeply because they were emotionally attached to certainty. But the truth is, certainty has always been temporary. No human being can completely control life. You cannot fully control people. You cannot fully control time. You cannot fully control the future. You cannot stop change from happening. Yet many people spend their entire lives mentally fighting these truths every single day. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows whenever the mind demands control over things that are naturally uncertain and constantly changing. Think about how exhausting it is to constantly worry about everything. People worry about losing relationships. They worry about failure. They worry about the future. They worry about being rejected. They worry about situations that may never even happen. Even during peaceful moments, the mind keeps searching for possible danger because it desperately wants certainty. This is why so many people feel mentally exhausted all the time. Their mind never truly rests because it is always trying to predict, control, and protect itself from uncertainty. But Buddhism teaches something deeply freeing. Peace begins when you stop needing complete control over life. This does not mean becoming careless or irresponsible. It means understanding that life will always contain uncertainty, and fighting this reality only creates more suffering. Many people mistakenly believe that control creates peace, but often the obsession with control creates anxiety instead. The more attached someone becomes to controlling every outcome, the more fearful they become whenever life changes direction. Imagine trying to hold sand tightly in your hand. The harder you squeeze, the faster the sand slips away. Human control works the same way. The tighter people grip life, the more frustrated and anxious they become when reality refuses to obey perfectly. Buddhism teaches that true wisdom is learning how to move with life instead of constantly trying to dominate it. Life has always been uncertain. Even the people who seem successful and stable cannot fully control what happens tomorrow. Illness can appear unexpectedly. Relationships can change. Entire life situations can shift suddenly. This uncertainty exists for every human being. The difference is that some people spend their lives fighting uncertainty, while others learn how to live peacefully despite it. This is where inner freedom begins. Most people think peace comes from eliminating uncertainty completely, but Buddhism teaches that real peace comes from becoming emotionally stable even while uncertainty exists. This changes everything, because now your peace no longer depends entirely on external conditions remaining perfect forever. Many people cannot enjoy life because they are too busy trying to secure the future completely. They postpone happiness constantly. They tell themselves, "I will finally relax once everything becomes stable. I will finally feel peaceful once all problems disappear." But life never stays completely stable forever. There will always be another challenge, another uncertainty, another unexpected situation. The person waiting for perfect conditions before allowing themselves to feel peace may spend their entire life waiting. Buddhism teaches that peace is not found in controlling life perfectly. Peace is found in accepting the nature of life itself. And the nature of life is uncertainty and change. Once you deeply understand this, your relationship with problems begins changing. You stop panicking every time life becomes uncertain. You stop reacting as if every difficulty will last forever. You stop emotionally collapsing simply because reality changed direction unexpectedly. Instead, you begin adapting more naturally. This is emotional flexibility. A flexible mind suffers less because it does not constantly demand impossible certainty from life. It understands that life moves in cycles. Some seasons feel stable, while others feel uncertain. Some chapters bring clarity, while others bring confusion. But nothing stays the same forever. This understanding creates calmness during difficult moments. Instead of desperately trying to control every situation, you begin focusing on what is actually within your power, your actions, your awareness, your response, your mindset. Buddhism teaches that suffering decreases when the mind stops obsessing over things it cannot fully control. For example, you cannot control whether everyone likes you. Yet many people destroy their peace trying to manage other people's opinions constantly. They overthink every interaction, fear judgment, and emotionally depend on validation. This creates endless anxiety because human opinions constantly change. Similarly, you cannot completely control whether relationships last forever. You can love sincerely, communicate honestly, and care deeply, but people still have their own emotions, choices, and paths in life. Trying to control everything only creates emotional exhaustion. Buddhism teaches that freedom comes when you stop attaching your inner peace entirely to external outcomes. This is one reason wise people often appear calmer during chaos. It is not because they never feel fear or sadness. It is because they understand that many things in life are naturally uncertain. And instead of mentally fighting reality every day, they learn how to flow with it. Think about nature again. The ocean does not panic during storms. The sky does not fear changing weather. Rivers do not stop flowing because obstacles appear. Nature adapts continuously. But human beings often mentally resist reality instead of adapting to it. They become rigid. They demand certainty. And when life changes unexpectedly, they suffer deeply because reality no longer matches their expectations. Buddhism teaches that rigidity creates suffering, while flexibility creates peace. This is why letting go of excessive control becomes so powerful. The moment you stop trying to force life into one permanent form, your mind becomes lighter. You stop carrying the impossible burden of trying to control everything. You stop overthinking every future scenario. You stop fearing uncertainty so intensely. You stop treating every unexpected event like a disaster. Instead, you begin trusting life more deeply. Not blindly, not passively, but with the understanding that you are capable of adapting to change. Many people underestimate their own ability to survive difficult seasons. They believe uncertainty will destroy them completely. But often, human beings are far stronger than they realize. Think about everything you already survived in life. Moments you thought would break you emotionally eventually changed. Painful chapters eventually passed. Situations that once seemed impossible eventually became memories. Life kept moving. And so did you. Buddhism teaches that this understanding creates resilience. The person who understands impermanence stops reacting permanently to temporary situations. They still experience emotions, but they no longer believe every painful moment defines their entire future forever. This creates emotional stability, not because life becomes easy, but because the mind becomes wiser. Wisdom means understanding that uncertainty is not the enemy. Uncertainty is part of existence itself. The future has always been unknown. Human beings suffer when they demand impossible guarantees from life. But once you stop demanding complete certainty, your anxiety begins weakening. You begin appreciating the present moment more deeply because you stop living entirely inside imagined futures. Many people spend years mentally preparing for disasters that never happen. Meanwhile, real life quietly passes by. Buddhism teaches that peace exists in the present moment, not in endless obsession over controlling the future. The future will always contain uncertainty, but the present moment is where life is actually happening. This is why mindfulness matters so deeply in Buddhism. Mindfulness brings the mind back to what is real, instead of allowing it to become trapped inside endless fear and mental projection. When you stop needing complete control, life feels less heavy. You stop carrying impossible expectations. You stop fighting reality constantly. You stop mentally exhausting yourself trying to guarantee permanent comfort. And slowly, something beautiful begins happening inside you. You breathe more calmly. You trust yourself more deeply. You stop fearing change as intensely, because now you understand that life was never meant to be perfectly controlled. It was meant to be experienced. Some moments will bring joy. Some moments will bring pain. Some seasons will feel stable. Some seasons will feel uncertain. But life keeps flowing. And the more you understand this truth, the less fear controls your mind. Buddhism teaches that true peace begins when the need for control finally weakens, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you stop demanding perfection from life. You stop fighting uncertainty. You stop resisting change. You stop expecting permanence from temporary experiences. And for the first time, your heart becomes lighter. Because now your peace no longer depends on controlling every part of reality. Your peace comes from understanding reality itself. And that understanding changes everything. 14. The less you cling to people, the more peace you keep within yourself. One of the deepest causes of emotional suffering is attachment to people. Human beings naturally desire love, connection, understanding, and companionship. There is nothing wrong with caring deeply about others. Buddhism does not teach people to avoid love or isolate themselves emotionally. But it does teach something very important. The more your peace depends entirely on another person, the more fragile your emotional life becomes. Many people lose themselves completely inside relationships. Their happiness depends on attention, validation, reassurance, and emotional security from others. They become emotionally attached not only to the person, but also to the idea that the relationship must stay exactly the same forever. And this is where suffering begins. Because people change, feelings change, life circumstances change, human priorities change. Even the closest relationships naturally evolve with time. But many people resist this truth. They desperately try to hold on to people as if love means permanent ownership. They become terrified of distance, terrified of change, terrified of abandonment. And because of this fear, relationships often become filled with anxiety instead of peace. Buddhism teaches that attachment turns love into suffering when your entire emotional stability depends on another human being. Think about how many people live in constant emotional fear because they are too attached. They overthink every message. They panic when someone becomes distant. They emotionally collapse when relationships change. They lose their peace whenever they feel ignored, rejected, or misunderstood. Even during good moments, fear quietly follows them, because attachment creates insecurity. A person who is deeply attached constantly fears loss. This is why some people become emotionally exhausted in relationships. Their mind never truly rests, because they are always trying to protect the connection from change. They seek constant reassurance because deep inside they know nothing in life is permanent. Buddhism teaches that true love becomes healthier when attachment weakens. This does not mean becoming cold or emotionally unavailable. It means learning how to love without trying to possess another person completely. It means understanding that every human being has their own journey, their own emotions, their own struggles, and their own path through life. Many people suffer because they secretly expect another person to become the permanent source of their happiness. They expect relationships to remove loneliness, fear, insecurity, and inner emptiness completely. But no human being can permanently carry another person's emotional peace forever. This is too heavy for anyone. When someone depends entirely on another person for happiness, fear naturally grows. Every small change begins feeling threatening. A delayed reply creates anxiety. Emotional distance creates panic. The relationship slowly becomes a source of stress instead of peace. Buddhism teaches that attachment creates emotional dependence, and emotional dependence creates suffering. This is why inner peace matters so deeply. The more peaceful you become within yourself, the less desperately you cling to others emotionally. You still love deeply, you still care sincerely, but your entire identity no longer collapses whenever life changes. Many people are not actually afraid of losing someone. They are afraid of facing themselves without distraction. This is why solitude feels terrifying for some people. Silence forces them to face their own mind. Without constant attention, validation, or emotional dependency, they suddenly feel empty inside. But Buddhism teaches that peace must first be cultivated internally. Otherwise, people spend their lives desperately searching for emotional completion through others. And this creates endless suffering. No relationship can permanently remove inner emptiness. No person can permanently stop uncertainty. No human being can guarantee they will remain exactly the same forever. Once you deeply understand impermanence, you stop demanding impossible certainty from people. You begin appreciating relationships more honestly. You stop trying to imprison people emotionally. You stop expecting others to heal every wound inside you. You stop becoming emotionally destroyed every time life changes. This creates healthier love. A healthy connection is built on appreciation, understanding and presence, not emotional possession. Many people unknowingly confuse attachment with love. They think intense emotional dependence means deep love, but often attachment is built more on fear than on genuine peace. Fear of abandonment, fear of loneliness, fear of rejection, fear of being alone with their own thoughts. Buddhism teaches that real peace appears when love is no longer controlled by fear. Think about nature again. Birds fly freely. Rivers flow naturally. Nothing in nature tries to possess permanently, but human beings constantly try to emotionally possess people. They want guarantees that relationships will never change. They want certainty that feelings will never shift. And because life cannot provide permanent guarantees, fear remains constant. This is why attachment often creates suffering even during beautiful relationships. The mind keeps asking, what if I lose them? What if things change? What if they stop loving me? Instead of enjoying the present moment peacefully, attachment traps people inside anxiety about the future. Buddhism teaches that peace comes when you stop trying to own temporary experiences forever. Every relationship in life is temporary in some way. Some people stay for many years. Some stay for a short chapter. Some relationships transform naturally over time. And eventually, every human being must experience separation in one form or another. This truth sounds painful, but it can also awaken gratitude. Because once you understand impermanence, you stop taking people for granted. You appreciate moments more deeply because you understand they cannot last forever. Conversations become meaningful. Presence becomes meaningful. Even ordinary time together becomes valuable. Impermanence makes love more conscious. Many people spend years emotionally distracted while relationships quietly pass by. They assume people will always be there. They postpone appreciation. They postpone honesty. They postpone love. And one day, life changes unexpectedly. This is why Buddhism constantly reminds people to become present while relationships still exist. Love people while they are here. Appreciate moments while they exist, but do not cling so tightly that fear destroys your peace. This balance is wisdom. Many people continue suffering long after relationships end because they cannot stop mentally holding on. The relationship ended externally, but internally they continue replaying memories, conversations, and emotions every day. Life moves forward, but their mind remains trapped in the past. Buddhism teaches that healing begins when attachment weakens, not because memories disappear instantly, not because emotions become numb, but because the mind slowly stops resisting reality. Acceptance creates peace. Some people were never meant to stay forever. Some relationships existed only for a chapter of growth. Some endings happen because life itself continues evolving. The more you resist these truths, the heavier your suffering becomes. But the moment you stop clinging so tightly, your heart becomes lighter. You stop chasing people who already left emotionally. You stop begging life to return old chapters. You stop defining your worth through another person's presence. And slowly, inner peace begins growing again. Buddhism teaches that the strongest form of love is not attachment. It is awareness. Awareness that every human being is temporary. Awareness that every relationship changes. Awareness that love becomes more meaningful when you stop trying to control it completely. This understanding transforms relationships completely. Now you listen more carefully, you appreciate more deeply, you become more patient and compassionate, because you understand that time is limited. Many people waste years fighting unnecessary emotional battles because attachment blinds them. They become jealous, controlling, fearful, and emotionally reactive because they are terrified of losing people. But fear-driven love often destroys peace for both people. Buddhism teaches that real peace comes when love is no longer chained to control. You allow people to be human. You allow relationships to evolve naturally. You stop demanding impossible permanence from temporary experiences. And because of this, your heart becomes calmer. This does not mean heartbreak disappears completely. Human beings will always feel pain during loss and separation. Buddhism never denies human emotion. But suffering becomes lighter when acceptance enters the mind. Instead of mentally fighting reality forever, you begin understanding. People come into your life, people change, people leave, and life continues flowing. This understanding creates emotional maturity. You stop reacting permanently to temporary situations. You stop allowing every ending to destroy your identity. You stop depending entirely on external relationships for inner peace. And for the first time, you begin experiencing love without constant fear. Because now you understand something deeply important. No person was ever truly yours to keep forever. They were part of your journey for a period of time. And the more peacefully you accept this truth, the more peacefully you can love. Buddhism teaches that attachment suffocates peace, but awareness creates freedom. The less you cling to people, the more peace you keep within yourself. And the more peace you keep within yourself, the more genuinely you can love others without fear controlling your heart. 15. One day you will understand that peace was always more important than control. Most people spend their lives chasing control while unknowingly sacrificing their peace. They want control over the future, control over relationships, control over outcomes, control over how others see them, and control over every situation around them. They believe that if they can just control enough things successfully, they will finally feel safe, stable, and happy. But Buddhism teaches that this endless search for control is one of the deepest reasons human beings suffer emotionally. Because life cannot be controlled completely. No matter how intelligent, powerful, successful, or careful someone becomes, uncertainty still exists. Change still exists. Loss still exists. Endings still exist. Yet many people continue mentally fighting these truths every single day. They become obsessed with preventing pain, obsessed with avoiding uncertainty, obsessed with making life perfectly predictable. And slowly, this obsession destroys their inner peace. Think about how many people live with constant anxiety because they cannot stop trying to control everything. They overthink conversations because they want to control how others perceive them. They worry endlessly about the future because they want guarantees. They become emotionally reactive whenever plans change unexpectedly. They panic whenever life feels uncertain because uncertainty makes them feel powerless. Even during calm moments, their mind remains restless because it constantly searches for possible problems. This is why many people feel mentally exhausted all the time. Their mind never truly relaxes because it is always trying to manage reality. But Buddhism teaches something deeply freeing. Peace begins when the need for control starts fading. This does not mean becoming passive or careless about life. It means understanding the difference between healthy action and obsessive control. You can work hard without trying to control every outcome. You can love people without trying to control their entire journey. You can prepare for the future without mentally living inside fear every day. This balance is wisdom. Many people mistakenly believe control creates emotional security. But often, the more someone tries to control life, the more fearful they become. Because deep down, the mind knows life will always remain partly uncertain. This creates constant tension. Someone becomes attached to a relationship and immediately fears losing it. Someone gains success and immediately fears failure. Someone experiences peace and immediately fears future pain. The mind becomes trapped in endless anxiety because attachment to control creates fear of change. Buddhism teaches that true peace is impossible while the mind is constantly resisting reality. Reality changes, people change, circumstances change, life itself changes continuously. And the more aggressively the mind fights this natural movement, the heavier life becomes emotionally. Imagine trying to stop the ocean waves with your hands. No matter how hard you try, the waves continue coming. Human beings often approach life the same way. They try to stop uncertainty, stop change, stop endings, and stop discomfort completely. But life keeps flowing anyway. This is why Buddhism teaches acceptance instead of resistance. Acceptance does not mean you enjoy pain or stop improving your life. It means you stop mentally arguing with reality every moment of your existence. Many people create unnecessary suffering because they constantly think this should not be happening. My life should look different. Things should still be the way they were before. But reality does not change simply because the mind refuses to accept it. And this constant internal resistance creates emotional suffering. Buddhism teaches that peace appears when the mind stops demanding that life obey personal expectations perfectly. Most suffering comes from wanting reality to behave differently than it actually does. People want certainty where certainty does not exist. They want permanence in temporary experiences. They want guaranteed stability in a constantly changing world. And because life cannot provide these guarantees, fear remains constant. But once you deeply understand impermanence, something inside you changes. You stop needing complete control in order to feel okay. This creates emotional freedom. You stop panicking every time life changes direction. You stop reacting to uncertainty as if it is the end of your world. You stop mentally collapsing over temporary situations. Instead, you begin adapting more peacefully. This is one reason wise people often appear calm during chaos. It is not because they never feel emotions. It is because they understand the nature of life more deeply. They know pain changes, situations change, emotions change, and life keeps moving no matter how permanent things may feel in the moment. This understanding creates resilience. Most people suffer because they unconsciously believe their current emotional state will last forever. During difficult moments they think, I will never recover, my life is ruined, I will never feel peace again. But Buddhism reminds us that everything changes eventually. The same person who feels lost today may feel peaceful years later. The same pain that once felt unbearable may eventually become wisdom. The same uncertainty that once created fear may later create growth. Nothing remains frozen forever. This truth weakens fear. Because now, instead of trying to control every part of life, you begin trusting your ability to move through life as it unfolds. This trust is powerful. Many people underestimate their own ability to survive difficult seasons. They think uncertainty will destroy them completely, but often, human beings are far stronger than their fearful mind believes. Think about all the difficult moments you already survived. Painful chapters eventually passed. Fear eventually changed. Confusion eventually changed. Life continued moving forward. Even the identity you had during those painful seasons changed with time. Buddhism teaches that once you fully understand impermanence, control stops feeling so necessary. Because now you realize nothing external was ever fully stable forever. This understanding changes the way you approach relationships too. Many people destroy their peace trying to control people emotionally. They want constant reassurance. They want guarantees that love will never change. They become fearful whenever someone behaves differently. But human beings are naturally changing creatures. No person remains exactly the same forever. Trying to control people only creates anxiety and emotional suffering. Buddhism teaches that love becomes healthier when attachment weakens. You stop trying to imprison people emotionally. You stop depending entirely on others for inner peace. You stop demanding impossible certainty from relationships. And because of this, your heart becomes calmer. The same principle applies to success, money, and status. Many people become emotionally trapped, chasing external stability, because they believe success will finally remove fear from their life. But external success cannot permanently remove uncertainty. Wealth changes. Status changes. Circumstances change. The person who builds peace entirely on external control will always live with hidden anxiety because external conditions constantly shift. Buddhism teaches that real peace comes from within, not from controlling the external world perfectly. This is why inner peace is more powerful than external control. External life will always contain uncertainty, but the mind can still become peaceful through understanding. The person who understands life deeply stops fighting every wave. They stop expecting life to remain comfortable forever. They stop demanding guarantees that reality cannot provide. And because of this, their suffering decreases. Many people believe peace comes after life finally becomes perfect. But Buddhism teaches that peace appears the moment the mind stops demanding perfection from life. This changes everything. Now you begin appreciating moments while they exist, instead of trying to possess them forever. You begin accepting uncertainty instead of constantly fearing it. You begin trusting life more deeply instead of fighting reality every day. This creates a quieter mind, and a quiet mind experiences life differently. Simple moments become more meaningful. Ordinary days become more beautiful. You stop rushing constantly toward some future moment where peace supposedly exists. Because now you understand, peace was never hidden in perfect control. Peace was hidden in acceptance. Many people spend years carrying emotional tension because they cannot stop trying to force life into one permanent form. But life continuously changes shape. Like water, like seasons, like clouds moving through the sky. Buddhism teaches that wisdom is learning how to move with life instead of constantly resisting its flow. The moment you stop clinging to certainty so tightly, fear weakens. The moment you stop demanding permanence, suffering decreases. The moment you stop trying to control everything, your heart becomes lighter. This does not mean problems disappear completely. It means your relationship with problems changes. Now uncertainty no longer destroys your peace so easily. Now change no longer feels like an enemy. Now endings no longer completely break your spirit. Because you finally understand something deeply important. Life was never meant to be controlled perfectly. It was meant to be experienced consciously. Some seasons will feel peaceful. Some seasons will feel uncertain. Some chapters will bring joy. Some chapters will bring pain. But life keeps flowing. And the more you stop fighting this truth, the more peaceful your life becomes. Buddhism teaches that true freedom begins when the mind finally releases its obsession with control. Because in the end, peace was always more valuable than certainty. Peace was always more important than control. And the moment you truly understand this, your entire relationship with life changes forever. 16. The more present you become, the less power fear has over your life. Most people are physically alive, but mentally they are somewhere else. Their mind constantly travels between the past and the future. They replay old mistakes, old heartbreaks, old embarrassments, and old pain. Or they worry endlessly about tomorrow, imagining future problems, future failures, and future loss. Because of this, they rarely experience the present moment fully. Buddhism teaches that this is one of the main reasons human beings suffer emotionally. The mind becomes trapped inside fear because it is almost never fully present. It is either carrying memories that no longer exist or worrying about situations that have not even happened yet. And slowly, this habit steals peace from everyday life. Think about how many people wake up already anxious before the day even begins. Nothing terrible may have happened yet, but their mind immediately starts racing. They think about future responsibilities, possible problems, uncertainty, rejection, financial stress, or situations they cannot fully control. Even during peaceful moments, the mind refuses to relax. A person sits with loved ones while mentally worrying about the future. Another person experiences success but cannot enjoy it because they fear losing it. Someone else spends years regretting the past while life quietly passes in front of them. This is how fear controls human life. Buddhism teaches that fear becomes powerful when the mind leaves the present moment. Most fear is connected either to memory or imagination. People fear repeating past pain. They fear future uncertainty. They fear possible loss. They fear situations that may never actually happen. And because the mind continuously feeds these fears, peace disappears. But Buddhism teaches something deeply important. The present moment itself is often far more peaceful than the mind's endless projections. Right now, in this exact moment, many of the fears inside your mind are not physically happening, yet the body still feels anxious because the mind keeps imagining possible danger. This is why mindfulness is so important in Buddhism. Mindfulness brings the mind back to reality, instead of allowing it to become trapped inside endless mental noise. When you become truly present, fear begins weakening. Not because problems magically disappear, but because you stop feeding fear with endless mental projection. Many people unknowingly suffer more from imagination than from reality itself. They imagine worst-case scenarios constantly. They replay painful situations repeatedly. They mentally create disasters that may never even happen. And eventually, the mind becomes exhausted. This is why so many people feel emotionally tired all the time. Their body may be resting, but their mind never stops moving. Buddhism teaches that peace begins when the mind learns how to slow down. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every fear deserves belief. Not every imagined future deserves emotional surrender. The present moment is where life is actually happening. But most people are too mentally distracted to experience it fully. Think about how quickly life passes. Entire years disappear. People grow older. Relationships change. Moments become memories almost instantly. And many people only realize this after time already moved on. They suddenly look back and wonder where life went. They realize they spent most of their years trapped inside stress, overthinking, comparison, and emotional attachment, while real life quietly slipped away. Buddhism teaches that awareness of impermanence should wake you up. It should remind you that this moment matters, because it cannot return again. The conversation you ignore today may become a memory tomorrow. The people around you will not always be here forever. Even your current version of life is temporary. This truth is not meant to create fear. It is meant to create presence. Because once you understand that life is temporary, you stop taking ordinary moments for granted. A peaceful morning becomes meaningful. A deep conversation becomes meaningful. Even silence becomes meaningful. The present moment becomes precious because you finally understand it cannot last forever. Many people postpone peace endlessly. They tell themselves, "I will relax later. I will enjoy life once everything becomes perfect. I will finally be happy after success." But later keeps moving further away while life keeps passing. Buddhism teaches that peace is not hidden somewhere in the future. Peace becomes available the moment the mind fully returns to the present. This is difficult because modern life constantly trains people to remain distracted. Social media, endless stimulation, comparison, noise, and constant information overload keep the mind restless. People rarely sit quietly with themselves anymore. Even during moments of rest, the mind keeps searching for distraction. This creates emotional instability. A distracted mind becomes easier to control through fear. An overactive mind becomes exhausted more quickly. A mind constantly escaping the present moment loses touch with life itself. This is why mindfulness matters so deeply in Buddhist teachings. Mindfulness is not simply meditation. It is awareness. Awareness of your thoughts. Awareness of your emotions. Awareness of the present moment while it is happening. When you become present, many unnecessary fears begin losing their power. You stop living entirely inside imagined futures. You stop carrying yesterday's pain into every moment. You stop emotionally surrendering to every anxious thought. Instead, you begin grounding yourself in reality. Right now you are breathing. Right now life is happening. Right now this moment exists only once. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is all anyone truly has. The past already disappeared. The future has not arrived yet. But this moment is alive now. Most suffering comes from mentally leaving this moment. A person relives heartbreak from years ago until it still controls their emotions today. Another person worries constantly about future situations that may never happen. Meanwhile, the present moment keeps disappearing unnoticed. This is why fear becomes so powerful. Fear survives through mental projection, but presence weakens projection. When the mind fully enters the present moment, it realizes that many imagined fears are not physically real right now. This creates calmness, not permanent perfection, not the absence of problems, but inner calmness. Buddhism teaches that calmness does not come from controlling every external situation. Calmness comes from no longer allowing the mind to endlessly torture itself through fear and overthinking. Many people think constantly thinking about the future protects them, but excessive worrying rarely creates peace. It usually creates exhaustion. The mind keeps searching for certainty, but life remains uncertain anyway. This is why Buddhism teaches surrender to the present moment, instead of endless resistance to uncertainty. When you become present, you stop carrying 10 years of fear inside one single moment. Instead of trying to solve your entire future mentally, you focus on this step only, this breath only, this moment only. This changes the way suffering feels. A painful future imagined endlessly feels unbearable, but one present moment at a time feels manageable. Buddhism teaches that the mind creates additional suffering by turning temporary fear into permanent mental obsession. For example, uncertainty itself may only exist briefly, but the mind may replay it for years. One painful event happens, yet mentally the person continues suffering long after reality already changed. Presence interrupts this cycle. The more present you become, the less emotional power fear has over your life. You begin realizing that many thoughts are only thoughts, many fears are only projections, many worries are only imagination. And because of this realization, your mind slowly becomes lighter. This does not mean difficult emotions disappear instantly. Human beings will still feel sadness, grief, uncertainty, and pain. Buddhism never denies human emotion, but presence changes your relationship with emotion. Instead of drowning inside thoughts, you begin observing them. Instead of becoming consumed by fear, you begin noticing fear without immediately obeying it. This creates inner space. And inside that space, peace begins growing. Many people live their entire lives reacting automatically to every thought and emotion. If fear appears, they immediately believe it. If anxiety appears, they immediately panic. The mind controls them completely. But mindfulness creates awareness between thought and reaction. Now you can pause, observe, breathe, and remain present. This weakens emotional suffering. Buddhism teaches that awareness itself is powerful healing. The more aware you become, the less unconsciously fear controls your life. You stop overreacting to temporary thoughts. You stop mentally escaping the present constantly. You stop surrendering your peace to imagined futures. And slowly, something beautiful begins happening inside you. Life feels slower. Breathing feels calmer. Ordinary moments feel more meaningful, because now your mind is no longer trapped somewhere else all the time. It is finally here. Many people spend years searching for peace externally while ignoring the chaos inside their own mind. But Buddhism teaches that peace begins internally, not through perfect circumstances, not through complete certainty, but through awareness. Awareness of this moment, awareness of impermanence, awareness of the mind itself. This awareness changes everything. Because once you truly become present, fear loses much of its power. The future no longer completely controls you. The past no longer completely imprisons you. The mind no longer drags you endlessly through anxiety and emotional exhaustion. Instead, you begin experiencing life directly. And that experience feels peaceful. Not because life becomes perfect, but because the mind finally stops running away from the present moment. Buddhism teaches that this is where true peace begins. Right here. Right now, inside the only moment that ever truly exists. 17. The more you chase permanence, the more you suffer. One of the deepest illusions human beings live under is the belief that happiness comes from making temporary things permanent. Most people spend their entire lives chasing stability in a world that constantly changes. They want relationships to stay exactly the same forever. They want emotions to remain stable forever. They want success, comfort, youth, beauty, and certainty to last permanently. But Buddhism teaches that this endless search for permanence is one of the greatest sources of suffering. Because nothing in life remains unchanged forever. Everything moves. Everything transforms. Everything eventually changes form. And the more tightly people try to hold on to life, the more emotional pain they create inside themselves. Think about how much fear exists inside the human mind every day. People fear losing relationships. They fear losing comfort. They fear losing identity. They fear losing control. They fear losing things that were never fully permanent to begin with. This fear exists because attachment creates the illusion that temporary experiences can somehow remain fixed forever. A person experiences happiness and immediately fears it ending. Someone falls in love and immediately fears abandonment. Someone gains success and immediately fears failure. Even beautiful moments become emotionally heavy because attachment quietly turns joy into fear of loss. Buddhism teaches that this is why so many people cannot experience true peace. Their peace depends entirely on life remaining stable. But life itself was never designed to remain still forever. Everything changes naturally. Seasons change, people change, dreams change, the body changes. Even your own mind changes over time. Yet despite this reality, most people continue emotionally demanding permanence from life. And because life cannot provide permanent certainty, suffering grows. Many people believe they are suffering because life changes, but often they are suffering because they refuse to accept that life changes. This is an important difference. Pain is natural. Change is natural. Endings are natural. But resistance turns natural experiences into prolonged suffering. For example, heartbreak hurts naturally, but many people continue mentally holding on for years. They replay memories constantly. They refuse to accept reality. They continue emotionally chasing what already ended. And because of this resistance, temporary pain becomes long-term suffering. The same happens with failure. A painful situation happens once, but the mind keeps reliving it endlessly. Instead of allowing life to move naturally, the person mentally remains trapped in one chapter forever. Buddhism teaches that attachment keeps suffering alive. The more tightly the mind clings to permanence, the more fragile emotional life becomes. This is why some people become emotionally destroyed whenever life changes unexpectedly. Their entire identity depends on external stability. The moment reality shifts, they feel lost because their peace was built entirely on temporary things. But Buddhism teaches that real peace cannot depend completely on temporary conditions. Why? Because temporary conditions always change eventually. This truth may sound uncomfortable at first, but it actually creates freedom. The moment you stop demanding permanence from life, fear begins weakening. You stop panicking every time something changes. You stop expecting every relationship to last forever. You stop emotionally collapsing over temporary situations. Instead, you begin understanding the true nature of existence. Life flows continuously. Nothing remains exactly the same forever, and this is not a mistake. This is the nature of reality itself. Think about nature. Flowers bloom beautifully, then fade. The sun rises and sets. Ocean waves appear and disappear continuously. Even mountains slowly change with time. Nature does not resist transformation, but the human mind constantly fights against it. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants emotional security from things that are naturally temporary, and because of this, people suffer deeply. Buddhism teaches that attachment often comes from fear. Fear of being alone, fear of uncertainty, fear of losing identity, fear of facing change. This is why many people cling desperately to relationships, routines, and familiar situations, even when those things are already creating suffering. The familiar feels safer than the unknown, but life constantly moves toward the unknown. Every day is uncertain. Every future is uncertain. Every human life changes continuously. The person who cannot accept uncertainty remains trapped in fear. But the person who understands impermanence becomes emotionally freer. Not because they stop caring, not because they stop loving, but because they stop expecting impossible permanence from temporary experiences. This changes everything. Now relationships become something to appreciate, not something to possess completely. Now success becomes something to enjoy, not something to build identity around permanently. Now even painful experiences become easier to survive, because you understand they will also change eventually. Buddhism teaches that suffering becomes lighter when attachment becomes lighter. Most people unconsciously believe, if I can just keep everything stable forever, then I will finally feel safe. But life never stays stable forever. Even during peaceful seasons, change is already happening quietly in the background. People age. Situations evolve. Time moves continuously. And one day reality changes whether the mind is ready or not. This is why Buddhism constantly teaches awareness of impermanence, not to make people hopeless, but to help them wake up before life passes by completely. Many people waste years mentally fighting change instead of fully living. They remain trapped in the past. They obsess over future uncertainty. They carry endless emotional resistance inside themselves. Meanwhile, life keeps flowing. Moments disappear. People change. Entire chapters quietly end. And because the mind was too busy clinging to permanence, many people miss the beauty of life while it is happening. Buddhism teaches that impermanence actually makes life more meaningful. A moment matters because it cannot last forever. A conversation matters because time moves quickly. Human life matters because it is temporary. Without endings, life would lose urgency. Without change, growth would not exist. Without impermanence, people would never appreciate anything deeply. Think about how many ordinary moments become precious only after they are gone. Childhood, time with loved ones, peaceful seasons of life, simple conversations, ordinary days people once ignored. Impermanence gives emotional value to existence. But attachment blinds people to this truth. Instead of appreciating moments while they exist, many people spend their time worrying about losing them. And because of this, fear steals their ability to fully experience life. Buddhism teaches that true peace begins when you stop trying to imprison life. You stop demanding forever from temporary experiences. You stop mentally fighting every ending. You stop believing that external stability can permanently protect you from suffering. This creates emotional maturity. The mature mind understands everything changes eventually, and strangely, this understanding creates calmness instead of despair. Because now you stop carrying impossible expectations. You stop needing every relationship to remain exactly the same forever. You stop needing life to unfold perfectly. You stop needing complete certainty in order to feel okay. And because of this, your suffering decreases. Many people believe peace comes from controlling life successfully, but Buddhism teaches that peace comes from understanding life deeply. And the deepest truth about life is this: nothing lasts forever. The body changes, the mind changes, the world changes, even emotions change continuously. The person you are today will not remain exactly the same forever either. Once you truly accept this, something powerful happens inside you. You begin flowing with life instead of constantly resisting it. You become more flexible emotionally. You adapt more peacefully. You stop reacting permanently to temporary situations. This creates resilience. A person attached to permanence becomes fragile because every change feels threatening. But a person who understands impermanence becomes calmer because they know change is natural. This is why wise people often appear peaceful even during uncertainty. They understand that no emotional storm lasts forever. No painful season remains permanently. Life keeps moving. And because they understand this deeply, fear loses much of its control over them. Buddhism teaches that attachment creates fear, while acceptance creates freedom. The more you cling to life, the more anxious life feels. The more you demand certainty, the more uncertainty terrifies you. The more you chase permanence, the more suffering you create inside yourself. But the moment you stop chasing permanence, peace begins appearing naturally, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because the mind stops fighting reality constantly. Now you can appreciate moments while they exist. You can love people without trying to possess them forever. You can experience life more honestly because you understand its temporary nature. This understanding creates a quieter mind. And a quiet mind experiences life differently. Ordinary moments become meaningful. Fear becomes lighter. The present moment becomes more valuable Because now you understand something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Nothing was ever meant to stay forever. And instead of fearing this truth, you finally begin making peace with it. That is wisdom. That is emotional freedom. And according to Buddhism, that is the beginning of true inner peace. Life is constantly changing. Nothing stays exactly the same forever. People change, emotions change, relationships change, and entire chapters of life disappear before we even realize they are ending. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins when we resist this truth and demand permanence from a temporary world. Most people spend their lives fighting change. They hold on to the past, fear the future, and desperately try to control everything around them. But the tighter they cling to life, the heavier their heart becomes. Fear grows, anxiety grows, and peace slowly disappears. But the moment you truly understand impermanence, something inside you changes. You stop expecting forever from temporary things. You stop panicking every time life changes direction. You stop allowing fear to control your entire mind. Instead, you begin appreciating life more deeply. You appreciate people while they are present. You appreciate ordinary moments because you know they will not last forever. You stop taking time for granted. And slowly, your mind becomes calmer, lighter, and more peaceful. Buddhism does not teach us to fear change. It teaches us to understand it. Because impermanence is not only the reason painful things happen, it is also the reason healing happens. It is the reason growth happens. It is the reason suffering eventually passes. Nothing lasts forever. Not happiness, not pain, not fear, not struggle. Everything flows. And once you stop fighting that flow, life becomes peaceful again. So do not waste your entire life clinging to what must eventually change. Do not let fear of loss stop you from truly living. Learn to love without possession, experience life without constant resistance, and appreciate every moment while it still exists. Because one day, you will realize that peace was never found in controlling life. Peace was found in finally accepting life exactly as it is.